So YouTube, if you guys are watching, just hang tight as we get everything set up. We'll have your comments up in a little while. Just shortly, I'll be able to read your comments and go from there. Welcome in, welcome in. Those of you that's already on. All right, cool. Welcome in, Facebook. Just hang tight so we can get everything set up here. We'll be ready to rock and roll. Hoping I see everybody still coming in. Hang tight, hang tight. We're about to be up and going. Thank you very much, Anthony Dunbar, for the donation. We appreciate it. Armageddon said you cannot hear me. Let me know if you guys hear me now. What's up, Tim? What's up, Eric? Adrian Borden, what's going on? Courtney, how you doing? Brian, what's up, family? What's up, Sam? What's up, fam? Anthony Baker, thank you very much for the donation. Raina, how you doing? Angela, how you doing? Anthony B, peace. Young Elder, greetings to you. Annie, hello. Courtney, peace. Just here for knowledge, what up? Young Elder, okay, so you guys hear me. Cool, cool, cool. Well, welcome in, guys. We're just gonna have a little simple dialogue today, we're gonna have a discussion just on some things of the Bible. Partly we're gonna discuss kind of what happened the other day for those of you that was on and witnessed the dialogue between myself, Callie, or Tacoma, as a lot of you know him, and his father, which was the bishop. So if you guys saw that last conversation, please give me a thumbs up or just let me know if you saw that conversation and kind of let me know your thoughts on it. What up, man? Trish, how you doing? Hello, Giorgio. Rod, what's going on? Hey, Laquita. Diego, what's up? Angela J, what's going on? Jerry Mosey, thank you very much for the donations. Well appreciated. Hi, Sneaky. Hear you but can't see you. We're gonna get that worked out, guys. I am not doing it in my older location, so we still working out the kinks. So we will have that fixed soon. Thank you very much, Terrence. I'm on it. Jay Fry said, I don't see or hear anything. Now everybody can hear me, but maybe some people are saying they can't see me. You guys just continue to let me know how the feed is doing because we're trying our best here. I hate canceling on y'all. I know y'all love this information. I know a lot of you guys really frankly can't wait until Sunday night when we have these dialogues. So I hate to let you guys down as I get tons of calls and emails when I do have to put the show off for any other reason. So whether I'm on the road or whatever, I'm going to try to give you guys some information on every single Sunday. They have in church every Sunday, right? So we try to keep it going every single Sunday. So if the feed is not to your standard, please bear with us. We're just trying to keep it going. All right. Thank you very much, Rod. Eden, welcome in. Okay, so the vote says he can see in here. Okay, great, guys. And that may come in and out. Just let me know as it goes. If I need to slow down, pause, or anything like that to give you guys a moment, that will be fine. Today, I will be introducing to you guys well, I'm going to call him a new addition because, frankly, a lot of you guys may have not heard of him. But when he comes on, you guys will be able to meet him as well. His name is Ricky. And, man, and boy, does he have a mind on him. He's actually really great at free thinking. He actually is really great at looking at the literature in the Bible and seeing this character God as we have learned to understand him outside of the character we've been taught to see him within. This all loving, kind, and stuff like that. We can actually see him outside to look at him from outside of the box, from outside of the dichotomy of how we were taught to see God or look at God or view God, right? So he'll be coming on today, and we're going to be talking about God and the way he fights evil with eviler evil, right? So that sounds funny at first, but just think of the idea of someone who, if you do something bad, they do something way worse to you. So this is what we're going to go from. The idea today is that this literary character, God, he fights evil with eviler evil. So some people look like they may still be having connection problems. Just let me know. Some people says the pastor wasn't listening. Some people said that he was trying to listen, but of course couldn't really intake all the information as it is new, right? And a lot of us, it's really difficult for us just to come out and say, hey, I'm new to that information. I was not aware of that information. Most of us is just in our pride or whatever you may have you. We like to say we already knew. So for me, I don't tend to do that because I don't really place my identity into what I know, right? It's okay for me not to know something. I'm still learning. I don't think that my lack of knowledge on anything speaks to me as an individual or less than, okay? But we have been taught to think that way. We shouldn't. So let's see. At least he didn't log off. I agree, LeSean. At least he stayed for the conversation, the duration of the conversation, and tried his best to express himself. Now, to us now, from our side, I thank you very much for that, LeSean. LeSean says I handle it professionally. And part of that is because, I mean, I understand that dialogue. I have been there, right? So a lot of it sometimes is when you're trying to explain God or who you've put your faith in, it's kind of hard to not sound philosophical when trying to express your belief in this God, because frankly, there is no proof of these literary gods, you know. So when you start trying to talk to someone about that belief that they have came to, okay, so Josh is saying that the audio and video is a little bit off sync. I hope you guys can handle that because we're just trying. This is the best we can do for now. Like I said, I don't want to give you guys a partial show or cancel a show. I want to give you guys the information. So hopefully you guys can bear with me. Where I am, my internet may not be as good, but when Ricky comes on, he may be more clear. So absolutely, guys, if you guys still don't still continue to watch and donate as usual, we are doing our best here. And believe me, this is as difficult for me as it is for you guys. I do not like giving you guys content that is not up to our standards. So please forgive me again. But either which way, guys, what I was saying is that when you're talking to a lot of these people who have, I guess, subscribe to these beliefs, it's hard for them not to sound philosophical. All right, Chandel says Gucci on his end, so maybe for some people, whatever. But anyway, it's hard not to sound philosophical and start reaching, if you will. It's really, really difficult to try to keep it about the facts because, frankly, they have not been taught to think that way. They have been taught to refer to literature, so it is kind of unfair, I would say, to bring them into the realm of free thinking because they don't have literature to stand on. And it's just, frankly, it's impossible to prove God outside of using the dichotomy and the literature and the philosophical type teaching that they've been taught to use to express God. So, but like LeSean said, at least he was willing to wake up. It's difficult, guys. So it really is difficult for a lot of people. Thank you very much, Young Elder, for the donation. It means a lot. Sky said, when you wake up, it is a lonely road. And it really is. I think for a lot of us, we forget the process of waking up. I think that for a lot of us is key. We forget the process that it took us to wake up. So we lack patience when dealing with people who are still quote unquote sleep, right? So but for us to become aware of the information and totally drop religion and say, you know what, I no longer believe in these characters in the Bible, not even Jesus, none of that. For you to come to that conclusion, it was a process. It did not happen overnight. For many of us, it was slowly coming away from religion and going from being so religious to being more evangelistic and kind of fall back, let people believe what they want to believe because you're starting to become unsure. And then all of a sudden, boom, you start to do some research and then you find out some things. But still, for some people, it's even a process. So I think we have to keep that in mind, that it's not difficult dealing with a new mind that is just now getting this information or being asked to think in that way. So you kind of have to give the brain time to reprocess itself or kind of reboot. I appreciate that, Jay. Jay said I speak with so much logic and it's really hard to ignore logic. I think that's a lot of times what what can help someone who thinks religiously, because we've been like so built into referring to literature and not using our minds. Thank you very much, Felicia McCray, for the donation. I really appreciate that. But we have been taught so much not to use our minds. We have been taught, stay away from our own thinking, because our way of thinking is futile, right? You can never understand God, so just settle for how he thinks and understand that your brain can never process things in a way that his can. So even when he does things that seem to be evil, we're supposed to just accept it because, hey, he's smarter than us. So if God floods the entire world because he's mad at people, then that must have been the best way to handle it, right? Because we were told to think like that. So when you start offering logic, okay, wait a second, why does he have to flood the world? When you start saying these things, this is when the brain starts saying, wait a second, I don't know how to answer that. I just know God flooded the world because he was mad. I've never been taught to question why this dude got so mad, and handle it in the way that he did. Thank you very much, Shondell. I feel you, brother, but we really appreciate whatever help you can give, man. And Shondell will tell you, he said he's been slacking on the donations, and we have not sent out one letter to him to say, hey, you still watch the show every week, where's our money? We've never done that. Churches do that. Well, not all, but we know some churches do that. We don't do that here at Be The Evolution. Let's see here. Thomas said he was mad at himself. That can happen, man. Sometimes you realize you're not in a position or as prepared as you thought you were, and you can really be upset with yourself and your preparation at that point. But the one thing that he'll understand in the future is, man, you really cannot be prepared for a conversation like that. Again, when your brain is not taught to think that way. It's almost like asking someone who really learned basic math to come into an advanced physics class. Like, their math is in no way going to be able to match yours. You have done so much more investigating when it comes to, or so much more studying when it comes to your math, that half of the terms you use and some of the math you use, they wouldn't even understand. And again, they only know basic math, so it's really that different of a playing field when the person has not been asked to really critically think, and you've been doing that. Let's see here. I know that's right, Shondell. Someone says, name the stages of dealing with death. Well, there's different ways of dealing with it. We were taught to deal with death by way of really just hoping to see him again. Hope that they're in heaven, and then also have hopes to actually seeing that loved one again. Thank you very much, LaShondra, for the donation on PayPal. I see that. So when it comes to dealing with death, a lot of times we're still ill prepared on dealing with death when you don't really understand that death is something that's going to be inevitable. It's going to happen, and you're going to have to deal with it. But the question is how? Does it help us cope by believing that the person that died is somewhere waiting for us and that we'll see him again? Well, no doubt it does, but does it make it true? And here's the thing. Okay, here's the best way to put it. If you were taught your entire life that when you turn 15, you're going to have $1 billion, right? Given to you in a trust. And you spend your whole entire life believing that when you turn 15, you're going to get this $1 billion. Let's say 18. Let's say you're grown. You turn 18, you're going to get this $1 billion. And you spend your entire life believing that you're going to get this $1 billion. Now, this presents a dichotomy where you're hoping now to get something that you otherwise wouldn't even have hoped for. Now, this happens and you're 18 and there is no money for you. You're going to fall into a state of depression now. What do? I'm not getting this money, right? I thought I was getting this money and now I'm not. If you have never been told about that, you would have taken things into your own hands, prepared for your future in a better way, right? And not just waited on this $1 billion that you're supposed to get. And because you did not do it, you weren't prepared. This is kind of what happens in life whenever you're waiting on, some hope to happen. Now, upon finding out you don't have this $1 billion in the bank at 18, you could actually move on and go about your life and take responsibility and say, okay, I'm not getting this lump sum. I'm going to have to earn everything I get in life. Okay, you can do that and move on, or you can harbor on the fact that you didn't get that $1 billion. That's up to you. So a lot of people, when they find out that we don't have any proof of heavens or whatever, they actually live their life like dreading the fact that they ever learned this information. Like, why would you take my hope from me? And it's like, well, You can dwell on that all you want, or you can live the rest of your life and enjoy your life, right? We're going to have loved ones that pass. Unfortunately, we're going to have loved ones that die, and we're going to miss them. But maybe it's best to spend as much time as we can with them instead of saying, hey, I wish I'd have told them I loved them more. I wish I would have called more. When you understand that, this may be the only life that you get due to evidence, right? And things that you know for sure, you tend to treat people better and tell them the things that they need to hear now. You see what I'm saying? So it's no problem for, like, say, for myself and LeSean to say, brother, I love you, right? Because I appreciate everything you do. We don't need to hold back anything like that because, hey, you're not even promised tomorrow. So why not tell the people around you how you feel? You see what I'm saying? That's kind of how I deal with it. You don't really deal with death, you deal with life. Someone donated. I want to thank by his grace for donating. I actually appreciate that. Donating to PayPal. So let's see here. Hearing the truth of religion is the same as dealing with death, the stages of death, denial, and anger and guilt. Absolutely, it's about the same. I mean, you're going to, of course, you're going to have that time period while your relative is sick. If they do go through a sickness prior to death, you're going to go through that time where if you are a theist and you subscribe to the belief in any of these books, you probably pray. So you're going to be asking a God to do that. And if your loved one dies, then you're going to be dealing with the fact that God didn't answer your prayer. You're going to go through a time where you're probably upset at whoever you think God is for that. And then you're going to go through a time period where you have to understand that God doesn't make mistakes, right? And everything is a plan. So you go through these type of steps. Well, when you're not a theist, it's strictly the mourning of the individual. And then you have the memories of that individual. There is no outside anger projected at a God or any sorrow or any questions projected at anyone for that matter. People tend to think that we question a real God as to why things happen on this earth, but we don't believe in literary God. So there is no question to these gods, hey, why do you let people die? The idea is if there were a God that we could speak to, this would be the question. But however, that is actually not our question. And a lot of people think that our standpoint or our argument is there is no God because evil exists or bad things happen in the world. And what we're saying is there is no literary God simply because all we have for evidence of these literary gods is the literature that they're in. This is why these gods can't be real, not because bad things happen. That's a reason, but it's not the reason, right? I see you, Annie. Okay, again, thank you again. Thank you very much, Terry. I don't know what's going on with Ricky or if he's able to get on. Hopefully he can soon. How do you refer to the creator? Well, at the end of the day, we haven't established that there is one by intelligence sake. So at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, why would we even have to? Again, when I say given a dichotomy or given a conceptual like God, this is what we've had. We have been taught that this creator created the universe and yearns for a relationship with us spiritually or physically. Somehow it longs to communicate with us. And this is not something that a God told people to write. So we kind of have to let that go. I think the relationship with you and what we're calling the creator or life itself is just simply enjoying it. There's really nothing to be understood, as the brain is really incapable of understanding the universe anyway. So it's kind of like, don't try to understand the universe in that way, but rather enjoy it, be one with it. Most people a lot of people I know now are, changing their diets and getting healthy and finding that their health increases when they become one with the universe or nature and, consume plant life and live foods. They find a difference in their health. Their life becomes better, a little bit easier, right? Less prone to certain diseases. By doing this. So whatever way that you have to communicate or become one with nature itself, then you can choose that. Some people meditate. Hey, I don't disagree with any of that. My whole thing is that to assume that a creator outside of us yearns to be with us is all conceptualized via literature. So I feel like we have to do away with that when we do away with the names of these gods and the birthdays of these gods. The ideas and the personalities of these gods also have to go. And for a lot of us, that really is hard to do. We can do away with the Bible's literature. Thank you very much, Derek, for the donation on PayPal. But we can deal with with letting go a lot of this literature. But a lot of it's hard for us to let go of the personality that the Bible says God has. You see what I'm saying? So that's the hard part for a lot of people. He still needs to be prayed to. He still needs to be talked to and associated with. And he has a name, and this and whoever he is, it is or whatever. Again, it needs our attention, or it needs us to focus on it somehow. And that's just not the case. It made the entire universe before you were born, right? So what help of yours would it actually need? What communication of yours would it need if it existed that long before the universe even began? How did it get here? Who's its God? It's a lot of questions you could really ask. But again, understanding a God in the way we've been taught to understand God, these questions are what we raise. However, if we weren't given this concept of God, we probably wouldn't butt against it so hard. When someone says, I believe that there's an energy outside the universe that holds it together, the very sheer fact that we have consciousness and can experience this universe is amazing. I'm okay with that. But when you tell me God had a birthday and told people to write a book, again, we have a problem with that because you cannot prove these things. I thank you very much, Lindsay Wade, for the donation. And guys, I'm really hoping that a lot of you do not mind me saying your name. I will not say the last name anymore because I know a lot of people, they'd be like, I don't really want you to say my first and last name. That's why I don't donate to PayPal, because I don't really want it said. So a lot of people, they get judged for even donating to our cause, even though we have a good cause. So keep that in mind. What's up, Joey B? I see you. So let's see here. David Lee said there's no word for it. Creator isn't even a good concept for it. Again, I agree. I think so many of these concepts have been shoved in our face so long, it's really hard to not adopt one of them. But this is why we call it free thinking. It means, you don't have to adopt someone else's way of thinking or even what they gave you first. That's the hardest part because, you find, okay, for example, you have a lot of religious people who are theists and subscribe to a certain religion and a God and a book. They'll walk away from religion and they'll understand that the stories in the Bible and a lot of these stories in these other religious books are plagiarized from later sources. But the idea in mind is still that a God told someone to even write that. And what they're not understanding is these are just man-made writings, regardless of how intelligent, okay, which some of them are beyond intelligent, and actually have masterful mathematics and psychology, just amazing things about the astrological side of the universe, ridiculous information that they have provided for us, ancient people, but this was still written by men and not inspired by God. And this is what I want people to understand. So that's the main thing. Jay, I do have a social media. I really don't have or use a Twitter. That was only for a awareness I was trying to do for the slavery in Libya a while back. Is where not YouTube, of course. Then you've got Facebook, which is Kevin Wesley, or Be the Evolution, and then you've got Instagram, which is I am Kevin Wesley. So if you guys are not subscribed to me, go ahead and do that, please. I'm always trying to drop information and enlighten folks. So I believe you will either be challenged by what I bring, or you'll really like it and enjoy it. Something you can share with your friends and family. Someone says, for something to evolve, it would have had to be created first. This is a fact. Created by what? What are you saying? If you're talking about created by a God, then if it's a perfect God, then evolution wouldn't exist, frankly. It would create things the way they should be, right? Unless it's weird God and just, I'm going to create stuff and then let it change on its own to evolve into something better because I don't really know what I'm doing. That would be kind of crazy. So just keep in mind that if you're going to give this attribute or the credit to a God or all-knowing, powerful God creating the beginning of something before evolution, then you have to consider why it needed to evolve. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Thank you very much, Terry. Thank you very much, Kenyon, for the donation on PayPal, if you can hear me. Okay, I can hear you now. It said the screen went dark. Okay. Okay, well, while he's fixing that, I'll still continue the dialogue with you, try to read some comments off. Someone says, how do you deal with, Jay Lee says, how do you deal with life since you've been awakened? Um, I didn't get to read the rest of your comment, but what I would say that I do overall is take responsibility for my life, my own decisions. I make a point to, plan out my days and get up and do the things that I need to do. Where I would normally pray. All right, brother, you there? Hey, brother, you there? Okay. What's going on with Ricky? Okay. Let me make sure I get tell the wrong time. Thank you very much, Tyrell. If you guys can hear me. Can they hear me now? Okay. Us until we get the comments back up. I was just saying, nothing much really has changed for me other than not contributing to religion. I take the time that I used to take to contribute to religion to try to give other people information to wake them up from religion, or at least give them a choice or show them some things about religion they haven't saw before. So I still dedicate my time to the people and making the world a better place according to my knowledge. So nothing really much has changed for me. Someone says, "Why are you an ex-pastor?" I am an ex-pastor because I was labeled that. I am a youth. I was a youth pastor and a preacher for many years inside of my church. Did most of the preaching before I left. But when I first made my video, of course, people made a video saying that an ex-pastor leaves the church. So this is kind of how that name circulated. That's how the name came about. But ex-youth pastor is what it would be more correctly termed if you want to do that. But it's neither here nor there. License and ministering is the same. Thank you. Good to be on. Hopefully, don't go off. Let's see here. Okay, good.
What's up, bro? Can you guys see me?
I can hear you, brother. Now, I don't know if I'll see it all this time around because we're doing it a different way, but I believe the crowd will be able to see, sir, for the audience.
Okay.
Someone says, "Do you have free will?" Free will is the assumption that there is a person providing me with a right or wrong to do. Do I have free will? This is, again, that's a dichotomy presented to you by religion. If you're asking me within the confines of my reality, do I have free will? Not really. Based on the state I want to live in, if I wanted to take a certain plant and inhale the smoke from it, right, combust it and inhale the smoke from it, I could go to jail. Where if you live in Denver or California or different areas, your free will to do that would be permitted. Mine wouldn't. So in that aspect, no, I don't. But if you're talking about a spiritual aspect as far as the ability for my mind to be able to make right and wrong decisions, no one has given me this ability outside of myself. Ricky, you there, brother?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, man. Welcome in, man.
I'm glad to be here, man.
Awesome, man. I was telling them a little bit about you, man. A little while ago. I was telling them that you, for lack of a word, I called you a newcomer because I believe a lot of the people that may be on today may have not actually saw you yet, but I believe that a lot of the way you dialogue, the way your perspective is into the Bible's literature, because we're going to dive into that just a little bit today and talk about some of the things that the Bible's God did in certain situations with certain people in the Bible, if you will.
Okay.
But if you want, man, if you could actually tell them a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Well, as I guess as many people already know, my name is Ricky Swink. I'm currently living in Phoenix, and years ago I was locked in religion. I was all in. I was with the Church of Christ, and one thing that helped me, I'll pinpoint something Jamar said. He said that, sometimes it's important for us to come through, certain houses so we can get that knowledge and that understanding. And I think it was important. Actually, I think that religion, actually, that denomination actually helped free me because they did actually encourage me to actually read the Bible, So I did read it from Genesis to Revelation. I studied many of the major topics because I was actually teaching it to people. So anything that I teach, I want to make sure that I understand it myself. And I'm not just, picking out a scripture here or a scripture there in an attempt to explain something that I really don't have an adequate understanding of. So I took it serious to go in and study the things. That way, when I'm speaking to someone about it, I at least can, be well informed and actually, articulate the literature correctly. So, but one thing that I also did was they caused me to go in and research how all of these denominations actually started. And when I did that, I found that every denomination or every religion originated with some person. So, but what they told me is that the church that I was a part of, actually Christ started that church. But it was funny that I found my denomination among all the other religions, and it actually originated from a man. And I brought that to them, and I was like, "Oh, who started the church?" And in my research, I actually researched my own denomination and found that it also originated from a man, and a lot of the members never even heard of this person because they never researched it themselves. They just went with what they were taught. And I wasn't like that, so with that information, it did actually help me, be serious about what I was doing. And actually, once my eyes became open, I was able to, put everything together and be like, okay, this doesn't make sense, and I was able to let it go.
Absolutely. And it seems that most people's awakening, for lack of a better word, comes via research. I was thinking about this the other day. We know in this literature it says that if any man lack knowledge, let him ask. We'll deal with some of that today when we talk about Solomon. Of course, when his request for knowledge was rewarded and what he had to do to get that request granted based on the literature in the Bible. But the Bible does record or say that if you lack knowledge, just simply ask for it. And we do know in the world that knowledge simply does not work that way, that it does require, effort and responsibility on your part to do the necessary study, right? To do the necessary reading and listening to, and all the time that you have to put into do so. We know firsthand that no God has literally spoken to us and told us to write anything down. So if he doesn't do it now, why would he do it then if he's the same yesterday, today, and forever? But we were raised to believe that a God once told someone this stuff and that we just have to believe it. And like you said, Ricky, man, when you begin to actually challenge this stuff, you find out it just came from men. And who are we to even trust these men who are already dead and gone, and we never knew them anyway, period. We have people out here today who we judge and look down on. And if we were to ask today, is there anyone on this planet that you think a holy, perfect God would choose to even write his literature? Most would say no one is qualified. However, you believe the writings of some of these people that were Christian killers and you know, and things like that that's even in the literature that had bad names tied to them prior to, I guess, their so-called meeting with their Jesus or whatever. But to assume that, you know, a all-knowing, powerful God would just choose people who just were not fit just for the sake of doing it is just crazy. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You hear me? All right. Yes, sir. Oh. Yeah, because yeah, I was definitely saying it was okay.
Yeah, I can hear you, Josh. Okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay. Let me turn it on. No, no. Hey, Josh. You said the camera button is. Did you send? Is it on the link?
You should have a camera button on your Skype screen.
Yeah, I don't. Hold on. Give me a second. Yeah, I could. I would be able to see that. I don't see it though.
They may not have the camera set up on there or something. They saying they can see me, but and Ricky, of course, is only the audio unless you can get your camera on.
Okay. Yeah, it's not. It's not. Well, I mean, I just. Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right, brother. Ricky, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. So what I was saying was, you know, it seems that you know, knowledge doesn't seem to come via just, you know, praying to the sky to just dropping down into your head. You know, it doesn't work that way. And of course, whenever people do put in the effort and the research, what they find is what they have been taught. It just necessarily isn't the case. And a lot of times they get upset, even with us presenting it. You know. Thanks a lot, Kevin. You there, Ricky?
Yeah, yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Okay.
You want me to go
Give me a
through
moment.
my you want me to go through my phone, Kev? That way I can get into Skype with my camera because I don't know why it's not picking up my laptop camera.
I actually do not know if it's possible for you to do Skype through your phone. Let me let Josh. Josh is probably gonna be on delay, but let me let him
Okay.
come back in and let us know. I'm gonna pause and wait for you, Josh. Is it possible for him to? Okay. Okay.
All right, give me a sec. Give me a second. I'm gonna sign in with. I got another laptop. I'm gonna sign in real quick and see if that's gonna do it. If not, then I'll just use my phone.
Okay. Okay, brother. No problem at all. All right, guys. So while we're waiting on Ricky to get back on another way, we're going to read some more comments from you guys. So let's see here. Let's see here. What question? All right. I don't see anything to respond to yet on here. Someone says Kevin nature is cruel. Is there true justice? Please elaborate. In the meantime, guys, so what we're going to be talking about today is God fights evil with eviler evil, if you're just coming on. So we're going to talk about some of the things in the Bible that man did, and then in return, what God did. Mainly, we're going to talk about the three kings, of course, which is Saul, David, and then, of course, Solomon, and then their interactions with the Bible's God. But to kick this off, I'm gonna ask a couple of questions, and you guys give me a thumbs up, well, just give me a yes or no. We can just simply do it that way. Is eating fruit evil? Is that something you would call evil? Eating fruit, even if that fruit is forbidden and you were told not to eat it, is that evil to eat the fruit? Thank you very much, LeSean. You the man. Birdman said, no, even if you were told not to eat fruit, it is not evil to eat the fruit. It's disobedient, but we're going to really call this evil, right? Or are you really going to call this evil? So let's see here. No, I'm getting no's. I don't see any yeses yet. So eating fruit, even if you were told not to do it, is not evil. And again, the Bible's literature tells you don't think with your mind, think in God's mind. So, of course, if we were thinking with the mind of a God, of course, the answer would have to be yes, which is really crazy. Indeed, Bobby, I appreciate that. Man, some of my church members don't even want to deal with me, bro. They rather look at me as a demon or an apostate before they want to listen to what I have to say. So, it's really unfortunate because if they know you personally, it's hard for them to see the change that you went through without associating it with being demonic. So I get more people actually hear what I say who are outside of my old circle than that's within. They're so used to the old me, they can't even believe the stuff I say now. So far I'm hearing negative. That is a negative. Okay. I like that. Jay says God is Suge Knight. It's funny. But okay, so we get that eating fruit is not evil. So, but even if a God tells you don't eat the fruit, is that what you guys are telling me? If you're giving access to every single fruit, every single piece of food in the world, in the garden, if you will, and only told not to eat one specific tree, is it evil if you eat from that tree? If God told you specifically do not eat from this one tree, and you got all the trees out here, and do not eat from this one, if you eat from that one that he told you not to, are you evil? So we just want to get within context. Do you consider that evil? Someone says it depends. It depends on what? What does it depend on? I'm asking if you are giving access to eat. It's disobedient, but not evil, Birdman says. It's not evil, okay? Someone said, why are you playing games? Absolutely. Well, I put this tree here, right? Now, you have to consider. Now, the question is it evil to eat fruit? Because we know what happened from them eating the fruit, right? Whenever they ate the fruit, what happened? They had to now die, right? So of course, these people who were infinite beings, now their life's going to be cut short, right? Women have to have periods and be ruled by men, and men now have to bring up raise food up by the sweat of his brow, or a man don't work, he don't eat, right? And so now your life's going to be filled with ailments. In pain, we shall bring forth children, and all of these things, such as every other mammal on the face of the earth, was, I guess, cursed with this whenever Eve, was so evil and ate from this tree, so to speak. But what we're looking at in this literature is when Eve ate from this tree, the result of what God did is worse, right? The literary God actually made them die for eating fruit. Do you think that's balance? You think that's evil? Even, I should say, or you think that's God fighting evil with evil or evil? Let's see here. Fruit is healthy. It's evil to tell me not to eat it. Well, see, I would say it's kind of wrong to put it there and then tell me not to eat it, right? If you don't want it to be eaten from. I mean, what did it look like? Was it enticing? What did it smell like? Of course, this is an allegory. We're not talking about actual fruit. Someone says it was shaped like a pear or an apple or whatever, but we're talking about forbidden fruit, which is a concept, and it was placed on a tree, right? A tree of knowledge of good and evil. So we do know that it was something that was eaten, right? Because Eve presented it after that to her husband, Adam, to eat, right? And then here comes God with his curses. But you're seeing that a person who makes a mistake, and then you're seeing God come in and then just go crazy on them, right? So that's kind of the concept that we're going to be looking at today. I see you now, Ricky. Alicia said, how can God punish someone for violating something that he made? Knowing they were going to violate it, which is crazy. Another time, are you waiting on Ricky to come on? Another time this happened, of course, is with the flood. Men were, sons of God were taking women as wives, and they were having these giants, right? And let's see here, Joey B, how to get the Hebrew is Greek book for free. I'm not sure. You said that to which email? I have to check on that. But I was just saying in terms of, the sons of God taking wives and having Nephilims, and then God deciding to flood the entire world and just start fresh, right? God is fighting evil with evil or evil. And so we're witnessing this happen over and over in the Bible. Israelites worship a golden calf, and then 3,000 of them have to die because they prayed to the wrong person. So we're watching this thing go on. And what the whole point is, this is done to institute fear. There's no level that God won't go to, right? He will wipe you off the face of this earth just if you make him mad. And this at the time was the dichotomy they were trying to build and create. Of course, now we're told that we live under a new covenant, and then God don't get so mad no more, right? So not only does God not speak, he doesn't kill people for worshiping their own God anymore. He doesn't open up the earth and suck up, people that's complaining about him killing them too much. He doesn't part seas anymore, if you will. And, of course, he doesn't speak to man and tell them to write literature anymore. All of this now has stopped for some reason. And we're supposed to believe that it's just because God said, I'm going to do things different and not deal with man personally anymore. I'm just going to stay back and be God and let them be man. And that's really what's going on, is what people teach now, which is crazy because he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Why would he change, right? You see here. Someone said, was the fruit allegorical? Of course, the whole Bible is absolutely allegorical. Someone says disobedient but not evil. I absolutely agree with that. It makes no sense to punish the world because of two people eating fruit. And that's exactly what I was going to say. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. Not only were Adam and Eve punished for eating fruit, which wasn't evil, we all agree. At least to our understanding, this is not evil. They didn't take anyone's life, anything like that. They just ate some fruit and became smarter, right? And not only were they punished, but every single person that comes from them. Check this out, guys. Here's my point. When I talk about the concepts we have been fed, this is Genesis. There's only two people right now that we know of so far that's on this planet, right? Adam and Eve. These two people were corrupt, right? They were not perfect. They were imperfect, if you will. Because of these two, sin is going to enter the world. Now, later on, God decides to kill the whole world and start fresh with one family. Now, this is the whole world, babies, infants, animals, and all. Now, my question is this. instead of doing what he did with Adam and Eve and just letting them continue to bear children who are also born, just get rid of Adam and Eve and then build a better man and a better woman? Why didn't he just do that? So it's just crazy that now you decide to kill people whenever what you want them to do. But with Adam and Eve, you said, I'm just going to let y'all have babies and just, create the same problem throughout the course of history that I'm going to have to eventually have my son die for. And this is the dichotomy that we have been fed, or the concept that we have been fed of an all-knowing, all-powerful God. And again, when you express this to people on how ridiculous it sounds for an all-knowing God to do these things, they actually get mad at you, like as if you've done something wrong for challenging the way we have been taught to see God. And they make that as if you're challenging a God itself for real when you're talking about the literature. Right. Let's see here. It says, Sonolu said that exactly, God would be evil if this is true, because he is all-knowing. He is all-knowing, and he created evil. If Satan is the problem for us and the person that's deceiving everyone, then the catalyst for Satan, the creator for Satan, is the Bible's God, so to speak. So Satan wouldn't be here if not for God, right? And Satan is the problem, right? And God created it, knowing he would be a problem. This is what you don't understand. He knows everything. So when a person takes on the attribute for knowing everything, everything literally becomes their fault. That's what people don't understand. You know everything. So yes, everything's your fault. You understand what I'm saying? And you cannot put responsibility on anyone else when you know everything. Let's see here. I love Kevin and everyone in this chat, but this is nothing, and this is that you're teaching Christ is the way. Do some of you think that it actually does anything when you point your puny fist to God? I'm not really understanding your comment, but if you're saying that Christ is the way, and if we are pointing our fist at God, which means to question or challenge God, do you think it would mean anything? My question would be, no, it wouldn't, because we're not pointing our fist or waving our fist in any shape or form at a God. We're not even addressing a God. We're talking about the literature that's in these books. No God actually created Adam and Eve. No God actually, flooded the earth. These are stories and motifs and myths that other people believe. So what we're doing is we're challenging the idea of believing these things are literal, which is believing that a God really did these things, and that God happens to be all loving. So saying that, you guys are really questioning God is out of the question. We don't really have any questions for whoever you think God is. We don't believe in that God. And that's another thing that people think, is that you're challenging their God or God because you're talking about literature that men wrote. We're talking about literature that men wrote. Don't make it more than what it is. If we're talking about Hansel and Gretel right now, nobody would think I'm challenging actually Hansel and Gretel, like I have a problem with it. If I'm talking about that, is breadcrumbs really the wisest way to leave a trail, really? When you got animals out in the woods who would probably consume those breadcrumbs and you wouldn't find your way back. Come on, is that really smart? Come on, guys. This is stupid, right? I'm not actually saying Hansel and Gretel are stupid. We're talking about a storybook, so please understand where you guys are going when you say that these guys are blasphemous and discouraging or disrespecting God. Is absolutely not true. You cannot disrespect someone that you do not believe in, at all. Just want to keep that straight. A lot of people don't like the second Spider-Man movie as much as the first. It doesn't mean that they don't like Spider-Man or that Spider-Man had anything to do with the makings of these movies, personally. So just please understand the difference. What's going on? Can you see me, Ricky? Or can you hear me?
And I'm
okay,
sorry,
fantastic.
I just didn't want to use this older laptop because it's behind in the processor, man. So the video's all choppy. But yeah, so I'm back in. So yeah, I'm sorry about the technical difficulties.
Hey man, listen, I cannot complain. I cannot say much at all. I'm experiencing the same thing on my end, man. So believe me, man, no problem at all. So we were just talking a little bit about while you were gone, this behavior and attitude of this Bible's God and how he is going to outdo your evil with evil or evil, right? you do something, he's going to do something way worse to punish you for it. So we talked about, of course, Adam and Eve with eating fruit. We all agree that that's not evil, right? It's disobedient. If a God told you not to eat from the only tree and you eat from this one tree, it's disobedient, but it's not evil. Now, to punish all of that person's generations that will come after them with death, hurtful periods and hurtful pregnancies, and now man got to work just for things to grow, which we know that's not true, right? We know that nature grows even if man ain't even out there doing anything to it. But this is the literature, and the fact that an all-knowing God, a loving God, would choose to say now everybody has to die because of something that two people did is in fact, fighting evil with evil or evil, right? And then we talk a little bit about, of course, the flood story and how God decided to flood the whole world because he was upset with, what humans were doing. So he's going to, of course, outdo your evil. So, of course, what I wanted you to come on is talk about some of the story of Saul. If you have any of that prepared for us, man, we're actually anxious to hear it.
Well, let me just point out something really quick in
Okay.
the Adam and Eve situation. Like I always use the point, God, he put the tree in the garden. Okay, so thinking about this in common sense terms, if I left a loaded gun on the table and my 9-year-old son came in and shot himself and killed himself, no one's gonna blame my 9-year-old. They're gonna blame me. So they're gonna blame the parent for not putting the child in a safe environment or an environment for him to not fail. So it just seems like to me the Adam and Eve story, you just got to look at it from a common sense perspective and say, hey, if you didn't want this to happen, why did you create the environment for it to happen in the first place? So in our everyday lives, we always as parents have to take accountability for what we do, but it just seems like this God character, no one ever holds him accountable for anything that ever happens, and that's just not realistic.
Well, what's crazy, man, is to think that this person can do all these things and would get mad if you asked them a question. And that's the crazy part about it is this God is all-knowing, but he doesn't take questions. You can be evil, right? You can do some of the things you do, but it shouldn't be without question. Right? And the way our brains is built, curious, always wanting to know. It's funny that this God would create our brains with the want to know and then deny us the know by simply saying, you can't even question me, right? So it's like I'm going to give Eve a curse that's going to, bleed over into every bit of her family that comes after her, all of mankind. And I'm also not going to explain why. And if you ask, then you did this, you're an abomination or it's blasphemy. This idea is just ridiculous.
So I mean, as far as the three kings, Saul and David and Solomon, I thought maybe you was gonna open up and then we can just kind of go from there and discuss it. I mean, if you've been in church at any amount of time, you've heard of one of these three characters. Like David, of course, that's one of the they give you the children's version of how he killed Goliath and all of, he did all of these things, but it's just like, you never hear about, listen, you look at someone's wife. I mean, when you are a king, when you are any type of leader, this is how I look at it, you have to be held to a higher standard. So you have to watch your activities. It's like you're a leader, any leader, you can't be thinking like the average person where you just gonna take everything that becomes available to you. I mean, I guess with your popularity, that's gonna come with certain things, but you gotta think and you gotta say, look, if I make this move or if I do this, what's gonna follow? What's gonna be the consequences of this? So how are people gonna look at me? And I know you don't want to worry about what people think about you or how they're going to perceive you, but you're a different person now. You're not the average person. You are a leader. People are looking to you for direction and for some type of standard. And if you can't uphold that standard, then you got to step down. So when I look at Saul and David, and God, it just seems like he just treated Saul just wrong. You know what I mean? Like just wrong. So
Right, absolutely.
I'm like, okay, like even it seems like to me, God, he can forgive the most egregious, like heinous sin, but simple things, he gotta just go all out on you for.
And you know what? Like that's perfect. And what we're gonna do was a little bit about David. We're gonna build up into that. We're gonna take it back to the king that preceded David, right? The king that was before that David was his predecessor, who is Saul, right? So if you guys remember the story, just starting off, just so you can kind of see the story following these three kings, some of the things that went down, right? So God, of course, supposedly tells Samuel to go to Saul and tell him that God is choosing him to be king, right? So this is coming through a prophet Samuel. Now, Saul, you are going to be king, but I want you to go in and kill all the Amalekites, right? Kill every single thing that moves. Don't spare nothing. Don't spare animals, no nothing. Kill literally everything. This is what an all-loving God is telling Saul to do. Now, you cannot forget about the concept of God. He's all-knowing. So he sent Samuel to tell Saul that he was going to be elected as king. He told Saul to go in and kill all the people and the animals. Saul did not kill all of the animals. He killed all the infants, just like God requested, right? He killed all the women, just like the Bible's God requested. He killed all the men. He spared a few of the animals, and the Bible says, so he could sacrifice them later. Now, Yahweh, seeing this, tells Samuel now to tell Saul that he is disobedient to God because he killed all the infants, all of the women, and all the children, but you spared a couple of the animals to sacrifice them later. Now, an all-knowing God, first off, knew he wasn't going to kill all the animals before he ever made him king. Now that he didn't kill all the animals, which really technically, if you know everything, he did kill all the animals because he's going to sacrifice them to you later, which you enjoy sacrifice. So this is frankly a gift, if you will. God, the Bible's God enjoys the aroma of sacrifice. I'm not making this up. It's your literature now, or those who subscribe to this literature. It's in the Bible. So Solomon now, who was going to do something, which is sacrificing the God, make this up and pull it out of his hind end. This can be a logical thing that he would have thought to do had this story really happened. Now, upon Saul doing this, of course, God tells Saul that he cannot be king anymore. Now, we have a problem with that because we're taught that God does not change his mind. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Now, we have a problem because he's made Saul king, and now he's telling Saul that he cannot be king anymore. And he's telling Saul that you're going to serve a little bit more time, but it's only until my next king is ready. Samuel says to Saul, I found someone, or God has found someone who is even better than you. And of course, he's referring to the little sheep herder by the name of David, right? So this is where David's going to come into play with Saul. David won't be yet king, but all these things that you see are going to transpire between the time that David becomes king and then David is actual king. So before we talk about the coming of David, me and my man Ricky just going to break down just from electing Saul as king to seeing Saul did not kill all the animals, which he knew he was going to do anyway, and then stripping Saul of his kingdomship and then telling Saul to his face, I found someone better than you. So we're going to just talk about fighting evil with eviler evil. So what do you got to say about that, my brother?
Well, let me point out something that you brought out about the Amalekites. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about this the other day, and it's like when you get clear from this, clear with the understanding that none of this stuff is real, like your mind starts to, recharge itself and say, let me look at this the way I'm supposed to look at it. You can't blame a lot of the things that has transpired through history on almost you can almost excuse the people for doing some of the things, not to say that it's right, but if they're reading this book and this book is saying God is telling his people to go murder everybody, because they don't share the same religion as you. They don't share the same traditions as you. They don't share the same culture, and God is looking at them as wicked and pagan. Just think about it. Think about your your ancestors capture the people who conquered our ancestors. They're sailing across the ocean with this book in hand, or not even to that point where just let's go to Christopher Columbus, whoever did hit the shores of America with this book in their hand, and they're looking at the indigenous people, and they're like, oh, they're dancing around a fire, they're chanting, all these things. They're reading this book that says that's wickedness, that's not godly, and they go slaughter everything. And this literature is not to blame for that. But the thing what people do, because we've been taught that God is perfect, even though his Old Testament, he had to get a second testament because it says the first one wasn't perfect. He said the first one was perfect, we wouldn't need a second one. So when people go and conquer and massacre indigenous people to take their land, we don't have any further to look than this literature that they're reading to say that this is okay. So going into Saul and him, I guess he's thinking of something better. And the thing is, how can God blame him for that when he has taken the advice of people prior to this? He's taking the advice of people, saying people have been able to reason with God prior to this. So it's not like God says something and that's it, and he does, like you say, he doesn't change his mind.
Right.
He has made bargains with some of his the people in the past. So if he's made bargains with these people, if he said, okay, I won't do it if this happens, or I'll change my mind, like he changes his mind all the time.
And I mean, in fact, he was going to kill all of the Israelites for worshiping a golden calf, and Moses talked them down to 3,000. so this is just a simple fact, He rescued the Israelites from Egypt to teach them about himself, and then was going to kill every one of them for not worshiping him. And this is what I'm saying to you guys. This person supposedly knows everything. So he knew he was going to rescue the Israelites from Egypt. He knew they'd worship a golden calf. He knew he would be mad enough to kill him. He knew Moses would talk him out of it. And yet it happened the same exact way. And we call this guy all-knowing. It's weird, guys. Just assume that someone knows all this stuff and then makes it happen and is innocent from blame. Like, we really have to grow out of this thought, this idea. Saul was made to do exactly what he did because he was designed by God. He already knew. So when he created Saul, he knew he wouldn't kill all the animals. But yet he would judge Saul for it and tell him that he's now incapable of being a righteous king because he didn't kill 2 animals. And who's going to replace him? A man who's willing to cut off 200 penis heads to marry his daughter. This is what I'm talking about. When David comes on the scene, he wants to marry Saul's daughter. And he says, if you bring me back 100 penis heads, right? Circumcised Philistines, go kill them and bring me back their penises as proof. Not their heads as proof. Their penis heads as proof. The skin on their penises. And David says, I'll do you one better, and doubles the amount, brings this back to Saul, only to be presented with the wrong daughter, which God knew Saul would do anyway. David takes her home, sleeps with her, and then brings her back and trades her for the right daughter. Like, this is stuff that we've been taught to believe is by way of a God. It's crazy talk, guys. We got to, and not to mention in the Bible where the Bible says that God sends an evil spirit to torment Saul twice, guys. This is what you don't understand. Why would God need to send an evil spirit to torment anyone? Like, why would a God be petty? Like, just think about this. Evil spirits are still used by God. So I want you to consider this. If you believe that story, for those of you who believe in demons, how do you know that demon is not sent by God to torment you? Like, literally, how do you know that when you lay in the bed in the night, in the morning, and you feel this sleep paralysis come on you, and we like to associate that with demons holding us down. How do you know that that's not demons sent by God just to torment you with his all-loving self? You see, and this is the stuff that we've been taught to believe about this God. He's perfect, he's all love, but yet he also commutes and makes deals with demons and sends them to do his bidding, right? And it's just the idea of that. I thought Satan used his angels for stuff, his own demons for stuff. But it turns out that God actually uses demons to torment people. The idea of it, why? Is he still mad at Saul for not killing animals to the point where he's going to send demons to torment him now? And the Bible says he did this twice. So you guys got to think about this literature now. That's why I say he fights evil with evil or evil. You're not going to out-evil God. Like, this dude is the king of it. And maybe it's because he created it, which the literature also says, if anybody who doesn't like me saying that.
I also want to add, Kevin, something you said. I always had this question. You were saying that this is, it's an all-knowing God, supposedly. If he knows what you're going to do throughout your whole life, how can you do anything other than that?
There is no free will thing, right?
You see what I mean? Like, if he already knows what you're going to do and you do something other than what he already knows, and that means he doesn't know everything.
Right.
Or, like, it's you going in circles no matter how you do it. Somebody told me at one time, he was like, well, I'm like, wouldn't that make me a robot if God knows every single move that I'm ever going to make?
You absolutely do. If every word that you say is already programmed through the plan of God, you are nothing but a robot. So everything that we are doing right now is set up by God. So there would be no need for any Christian to be mad at us, period. If we cannot move outside of the confines, if you ever saw Black Mirror, it's a very good episode just like that. They all been programmed and don't know it. And even one of them thinks that they can think outside of the box, and they don't realize that they're actually being programmed the whole time by someone who just gave them more of the ability to think. You see what I'm saying? So they're like, these gotta be my thoughts. And they're like, actually, no, the words you're saying is coming up on this board right now, proving that someone's typing these words into you. And she's like, no, it's not me. And she's looking at the words right on the screen, saying, no, it's not me, before she can say them. And she can't control herself. And when she sees it, cognitive dissonance hits her. She cannot believe it. She starts to have a nervous breakdown because she's learning that she's a robot. This is what happens to us. We learn that everything we say is regurgitated and learned from man, and nothing's really well thought out. And then when someone starts showing us how foolish these subscriptions we have made is, we get mad at them because we don't want to be a robot. So telling us that we've governed our whole life down to the literature of a man makes us mad. You see, when we should look at that as an opportunity to say, you know what, if I learn I'm a robot, if I have the consciousness to know I'm a robot, this in fact means I can be human, right? I don't have to be one, because a robot does not have the ability to think. So this will be the one. But at the time, people just can't hear the truth for saying, I'm personally, because of the time I wasted believing it, which to me is just crazy. We're here to learn, right?
Yeah. Like when we go to church, it's almost like, when you go to some places, they have metal detectors, and there's certain things you can't take with you. You have to check it. So it's almost like when you go to church, you got to check your brain at the door. If you walk in, they got a brain detector. If you walk in, the siren will go like, ooh, you gotta leave your brain here. You gotta leave your thinking here. You gotta leave your logic and your common sense right here. We just go come in and have a peaceful service, and that's it. And then when you get up and leave, you can get your brain back. You can put your brain back, because everything else in your life, you have to be able to apply common sense and logic to it, except for religion. Nothing else. When you apply common sense and logic to this literature, it does not make sense. It does in any, like, there's hardly anything out of the Bible that you can really make sense of literally, except for some of the things that's written in there that's just demonstrable. Like sowing and reaping. That's common sense. If you sow seed on 1 acre of land and I sow seed on 2 acres of land, I'm gonna reap more than you because I sowed more than you. That's common sense. That doesn't have anything to do with that coming from a God or it being in his book. But somebody will take that statement and say, "See, sowing and reaping. That's real. Like, that makes sense." So but if somebody told you that came from God, and because it makes sense, you think you believe it. It substantiates everything else in the book that doesn't make sense, and that's right. Illogical.
What's more unfair than that is understanding that this literature came from a bunch of planters and farmers. You see, so who had cattle, who did so these type of allegories would be what would be used in a cultural land where they were, bringing up, they were growing all this food. You see what I'm saying? So if you grew up under a farmer, his allegories for teaching you life are probably going to be about farming, right? If you grow up and your father's a fisherman, he's probably going to use a lot of allegories and concepts about a fishing rod or anything to convey messages to you. This is just how we talk. We use what we know to try to make sense to another person. You know what I mean? And this is fair when you're human. But when you're talking about a person who is God, who knows everything, knows perfectly how to communicate with you, but then would use, very generic, primal type literature that clearly comes from the culture that was practicing these acts, and then say it's a God for us to want us to believe it is simply unfair. Watch this. Just to try to continue on. Of course, David. Once he takes over for Saul. The Bible says that God now gives David all of Saul's territory and all of his wives. So this is something to consider. Saul is now stripped of his wives, and these wives now belong to David. Now, we say we don't believe that rape is in the Bible, but let's just talk about this for a moment, okay? These were Saul's wives. Saul's wives. They were given to, apparently God gives wives, but these were given to Saul via God, and now they're stripped from Saul and given to David, the same wives. Now, are we to assume that these wives already wanted David? Because if they did, that would be lust, right? Because you cannot lust for someone else if you're married. But how can God give you someone else's wives? They were Saul's wives, and now these same wives are now David's wives. What does that mean? This means that they're David's wives. He sleeps with them now. This means that they must enjoy it, right? If they don't, it's rape. And if they do, that's a problem, because that would mean that this guy gave them the desire, which is invading someone's free will. And if it's not lust to want someone, even when you're already with Saul and not really be feeding and wanting David, then you got to really straighten this out for me, because we know for a fact the literature says that David's wives were given to, that Saul's wives were unfortunately given to David. And of course, all of Saul's belongings. How do we know this? Of course, when David slept with Delilah, or not Delilah, but Bathsheba, when God is scolding David about what he did, he promises to kill David's son. Now, again, this is God fighting evil with evil or evil. David is wrong, first off. Let's just clear that up. Like my man Ricky said, David's wrong. He looked at another man's wife, knew that this woman was married to his actual friend, Uriah, okay? Sends for her, and he sleeps with this woman and gets her pregnant. Then he puts his best friend, or his number one soldier, Uriah, on the front line, or in the worst part of battle, to be killed. And God, of course, is infuriated by this. Of course, he should be, but because that is wrong. But again, why is God mad? Because he is in the business of taking people's wives and giving them to him. But he's mad at David because he took someone else's wife. My imagination, just going from the literature, is that God is upset because he didn't personally give, Bathsheba to David. Because had he did that, it would have been fine. But had David went out on his own, it's now a problem. But what is God going to do? He's going to kill David's child. God is going to destroy evil with evil or evil, right? So David is definitely, guilty of, adultery. But God is going to punish that by killing the man's child, right? And then he's telling David in conversation, I gave you everything. I gave you all of Saul's wives. I gave you Saul's kingdom, and I would have given you more had you asked. My next question is, where would God have gotten it from? He said, I gave you something of someone else's, right? I gave you something that belonged to someone else. And if you had wanted more, I would have given you more. Would you have created it, or would you have taken it from someone else to give to me? Because that's what it appears to be, right? But this is the literature now. So keep in mind, the same God who took Saul's wives and gave them to David is now mad at David for taking Bathsheba. And God already knows that David's going to sleep with Bathsheba again and have another child. And that child would be the third king that we're going to talk about, which is Solomon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a freeze on it. And then my man Ricky going to kind of break down some of the things that God did and what some of the problems with an all-knowing, all-loving God. And again, we're trying to show you guys how God fights evil with evil or evil. You cannot out-evil God. Keep that in mind. Back to you, Ricky.
All right. You want me to speak on it now?
Yeah, absolutely, please.
Okay. The one of the things you forgot in the situation with Uriah is that he actually tried to hide the fact that he slept with Bathsheba first, by
Absolutely.
encouraging Uriah, hey, go be with your wife. You about to go out to war here pretty soon, and because Uriah was so upstanding, he's like, no man, I gotta stay focused. I can't be going to sleep with my wife. We're trying to win this fight. We're trying to win this war. And when I don't know if you know boxing, but before a fight, you don't want your legs to get taken away. You know what I mean? So he's like, no. So he's so dedicated to fighting for David. He says, look, I don't want to go spend this time with my wife. I got to get back out here, so we can make sure I be in my right mind to fight this enemy. And this is the thanks he gets. So again, to point out the fact that Saul, when you said that the Bible says that God told Saul, I've chosen one better than you. How can David be better than Saul? Saul never took nobody's wife. He never, slept.
It's like, it's just so crazy. I'm already saying he better than you. We didn't put this man to the test yet.
But we just totally look over that and just be like, that's cool because God said so, or because this book says so. And that's where we're just absolutely out of our minds with this entire book.
You're absolutely right, man, because the question that comes to my mind is, you choosing one better than me, so where was David this whole time? Had he been better than me this whole time? Why didn't you just choose him and leave me the heck alone? And I wouldn't have to be going through this. You see what I'm saying? I done risked my life and took my men into this city and tried to kill all these Amalekites and stuff for you. I risked my own personal life trusting you. And because I didn't kill a couple of animals, because I was going to sacrifice them later, dude, to you. But now you're going to take my whole kingdom and tell me that there's somebody better than me. Like that don't hurt enough to hear it all-knowing God tell you that I got somebody better than you. But why is he better than me? Because you made him better and made me worse? Is it my fault that he's better? And what makes him better? And again, you're supposed to just read this story and not question it, just because it's God, right? It's men's literature, but you're supposed to see it as it's God and just move on like that's the smartest way to handle it, because it's God, right? That's the absolute best way to handle this, because it's God.
Hey, Kevin, one thing I want to point out, if you read this story, if you read some of these stories in the Bible and it doesn't bother you, you have to ask yourself, what type of person am I? Like, where's my morality and my thought pattern? Like, what type of person am I to read this and not have a problem with it? So that's sometimes you got to ask yourself that question, because I'm way back in Genesis with Esau and Jacob, and I had a problem with it saying, God loved Jacob and hated Esau. I'm like, why you hate Esau for what?
Before the man was born. How you hate a man before he born? It's crazy. Right.
So I'm like, and then it's like when God told Abraham that his people were going to be in bondage for 400 years, like you say, before they were even born. He's already decided this. Like, what type of God is this? And it's like he's the most. It's like you're in a relationship. You're in an abusive relationship, and it's like if anybody else treated you this way, you would tell you like, man, you need to sever that relationship. You need to get away from this person, but not this guy. This guy can do anything he wants to do to you. And you just got to take it. You have to accept it. And it's his way, no matter how horrible it is. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous. And everything you do good, you credit it to him. Everything you do wrong is because you messed up. You made the mistake. But anything you do good, oh, thank God. Give God the glory. You'll never have any self-confidence. You'll never have any self-worth. You'll never have any confidence if you can't take some of the credit and say, you know what, I did this. If you lost weight, I got up early and went to the gym. I ate right. You give all the credit to God for everything that you've ever done. And if our people who have been through so much, if we just take a little bit of credit for ourselves, let's say God was responsible for some of the things. If we just took a little bit of credit for ourselves, because we need that. We've been stripped of everything. We need that little bit of confidence. We need that little bit of self-worth. God should, the all-knowing God should understand. And I'm just speaking from the premise of if he did exist, because a lot of people who may see this still may feel like he does. You know what I mean? So if we did take credit for it, he should understand. He's like, this person ain't never had anything to hold on to even feel good about themselves. So I can understand they taking credit, because it did require some work. I didn't just snap my finger and bring this thing into fruition. They did have to do something in order to make this happen. But no, they're like, nope, don't take no credit. Don't give God the glory. That's nonsense.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree, man. And again, if you can't think outside of that, someone says it's almost like having a relationship with a narcissist. And that's exactly what it's like. When you're dealing with a person who says, I'm right and you're wrong simply because I'm stronger than you, that's just a horrible way to run a relationship. Just think about that. If we operated in this way, men would be running their households, right? Funny to even say that. Men would be running their households because they got a penis, it's theirs, right? But they would be running their household by way of saying, I'm stronger than you. I can beat you up, so therefore, I'm right about every freaking thing. There's no way my wife can know more than me because I'm stronger than her. She cannot beat me in arm wrestling any day of her life. On her strongest day, she probably couldn't beat me up on my weakest day. Therefore, everything she says is wrong and I'm right. And this is the idea you get from this guy. I'm stronger than you, so I know I'm right and you wrong. But based on what? I mean, the thing about it is, again, when you look at the way this man or this character carried himself in this literature, he's not that intelligent. Again, he supposedly knows everything. You're going to find here coming up that even him giving you knowledge is based on something evil. Okay, so we're now dealing with a child now that was now born out in the marriage or the consummation of David and Bathsheba when the first child was murdered, because God was true to his word in the literature. He really killed David's son. This next son, of course, that's born is named Solomon, and he is now going to be the wisest king ever in the world. The wisest king to ever live is what the Bible says. So how did he become the wisest king that ever lived? And I'm going to pause for a second, Ricky, and I'm going to let some comments come up. If any of you know how did Solomon become the wisest king that ever lived, please comment for me. I just want to see kind of the knowledge of the people listening. How did Saul become the wisest king to ever live or ever will live according to the Bible's literature? This is going to be good. I wish we had like the Jeopardy music there. Dum, 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 dum. Somebody said because the book says so. I can't argue with that. But I'm looking for specifics. I hate to be about semantics, but I would just like to know if you know what in fact that he did in order to become the wisest king to ever live or ever will live in the history of life. Solomon is the wisest person that ever lived. I'm gonna give it a couple more seconds. If we don't get it, we just gonna roll with it. Someone says we know none of these people were actually real. Not at all. You're right. Didn't God give him wisdom? He did give him wisdom, but the question is, why did God give him wisdom? Anyone that makes a lot of mistakes should be wiser. That is true. You should learn from your mistakes. God sends blessings. It's true. When God gives him permission to kill people that anger him, if someone slaps me, turn the other cheek. Missed a lot of it. Okay, so all right, I'm going to give it to you. God makes Solomon the wisest king that ever lived because Solomon sacrificed 1,000 animals to him. So the Bible says that Solomon sacrificed 1,000 animals to God, and God smelled this smell, of course, and then told Solomon, with this type of sacrifice, you could just ask of it and you can have it. And then Solomon said, of course, I want wisdom. And God said, if you had asked for anything, I would have given it to you. So of course, I will most certainly make you not just wise, but the wisest king to ever live. So Solomon was made the wisest king that ever lived because he killed and burned 1,000 animals. Now, please tell me, why does the murder, and cremation of 1,000 animals constitute being the wisest king to ever live? Please tell me why an almighty, all-knowing God saw that as being worthy of being anointed as the wisest king to ever live. Please tell me that. And it's based on, people say, well, it's not because he sacrificed the animals. It's because he was given the option to ask for anything but ask for wisdom. No, he was given the option to ask for anything because he sacrificed 1,000 animals. Please don't jump one part to keep your own. The whole reason we have this premise, if they say that as if Solomon didn't kill and cremate these animals, God would have came to him anyway and said, ask what you want. That smell of nothing in my nose is awesome. No, it's because he killed 1,000 animals. And this is the idea or the concept of God. Just tell me how crazy that is, bro. Like, how crazy is that?
Let me jump in, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can look at it like this. Solomon still asked for something for himself.
Right.
He could have asked for anything. He could say, this world, I just want this world to be better. I just want us to not have to kill anybody else. I just want us to be in peace and harmony for eternity. I want us to go to paradise. Everybody right now that's living, let's go to paradise. No, he asked for wisdom for himself. You know, he didn't ask that everybody on the earth right now use wisdom or exercise wisdom. He just asked for wisdom for himself.
Yeah, he didn't ask that all other religions be destroyed and just this one be true so we didn't get confused. He didn't ask that.
That's for himself.
He didn't ask
money.
Right.
He could ask for women, but he asked for wisdom. Ooh, so listen, we look at these things as being so great because that's what we've been taught. If I ask for wisdom right now, God would, the make-believe God would give me anything I ask for right now, and I ask for wisdom, you would say I was the dumbest person that ever lived. You see, I used the wisdom. You know, we're gonna get to that. But out of all the things that I could ask for right now, I'm gonna ask for wisdom. How is that going to benefit the rest of the world? How's this wisdom going to benefit the rest of the world? You know, so.
And what's crazy is they're going to find out real quick how much that wisdom benefited them, which is wild. Now, we're dealing with the all-knowing God who knew Saul was going to sacrifice those animals, who knew Saul would answer via I want wisdom because God created him to do so. So the sheer fact that God created Solomon to burn those animals and say out loud, I want wisdom, is not a testament to Saul and his beautiful mind or heart because God knew he would ask for wisdom. It's not a shock to God. So therefore, when he says exactly what God knows what he's going to say, it deserves a reward, right? So let's reward him. Queen Azuri said, why didn't God protect those innocent animals? Why is it necessary to kill these animals just to become wise? Why is it necessary to slaughter to get God's attention? You know, guys, just so you know, this God knows everything before it happens. Now, don't get me wrong. You're going to have some Christian apologist who looks at this video and says, Kevin, you're taking it out of context. The sheer fact is these things actually factually, literally happen in this Bible's literature. These things happen. You can try to paint whatever picture around it that you want. The sheer fact that God maneuvers throughout this way, it's just hardball in itself. And I don't think anybody can disagree with that who has the knowledge to understand that this is man written. If you, of course, believe it's God written, you're scared to tell the truth. But, you know, if you know it's not God's word, then I don't think anybody's going to say, yeah, this sounds actually good. This actually sounds okay coming from an all-knowing God. I don't find a problem with it. I've never met anybody that said that. So let's just move on to the next part. Solomon actually worshiped false gods. Solomon was made the wisest king ever. Okay, he was advised by surrounding kingdoms that he shouldn't date these young girls. He was now let me say this slowly. He was the wisest king that had ever lived or ever will live. Yet he had advisors. Did y'all hear that? People advised him, Saul, you should not date these young women. Saul went against their advice and dated these young women. And they tricked Saul, the wisest man that ever will live, into worshiping false gods. Now, I want you to really just think about this. God made this man the wisest man in the world, and then said he'd be the wisest man to ever live. This exact same person worshiped false gods. Please tell me how being the wisest man in the world helped him. He worshiped false. He was the wisest man in the world and fell victim to worshiping false gods. It's just ironic. It goes to show that there's no hope for anyone else. This man is the wisest man in the world. He couldn't get it right. We might as well just jump off a cliff. Like, it's just nothing we can do, right?
You know what, Kev? No, the wisdom, and again, when you start thinking about this differently, you gotta understand. Maybe he came to the realization that this God that he was worshiping wasn't, you know what I mean, what he's supposed to be, you know what I mean? So that's why he started worshiping other gods. He was like, man, this God I'm worshiping, he kind of crazy. You know what I mean?
Well, hey, I
took him away from God because he was like, dude, you on some other stuff, you know what I mean?
right.
Check out some of these other guys, because what you doing, man, that sound a little crazy to me.
Well, see, the problem with that is, once Solomon does this, of course, God gets mad at him, right? But God forgave Solomon, okay? And for those of you that don't know why he forgave Solomon, well, it's because Solomon killed 144,000 animals and burned them this time, and then God forgave him. Now, this is what you got to understand now. Solomon now, who killed 1,000 animals to become the wisest king that ever lived, has now made the mistake of worshiping false gods. In order to get God to forgive him for worshiping false gods, he kills 1,000 animals times 144,000. You understand what I'm saying? That number probably ain't right. 1 times 144,000. But he killed 144,000 animals, and then God forgave him for worshiping false gods. So what does that tell you about this character God? He obviously loves sacrifice. He loves the smell of animals. It's just a ritualistic God who's okay with you killing animals to show that you're sorry. So for Solomon worshiping false gods, it was worth 100. It cost the lives of 100 and the blood of 144,000 animals for God to find it in his heart to forgive Saul. Just think about this. And God knew it all would happen. So now, because of Saul, 154,000 animals are murdered, and none of it results in punishment from God. It results in being the wisest king that ever lived and been forgiven from worshiping false gods while being the wisest king that ever lived. Now let's talk about this guy and why y'all think he's so perfect and holy. Because this is in y'all literature, and y'all will still say this dude is holy, which is just ludicrous to me, because how can he be? How can he be?
Let me point out something, Kev. With what I was thinking about when you was just speaking there. David broke one of the 10 commandments. Solomon broke one of the 10 commandments. Saul didn't. And he's the one that got, you know, the rough end of the.
He's the one who God sent a demon torment, right?
Out of 3. So, and then also you have to ask yourself, because for those who take this book literally, you got to ask yourself, why does that number 144,000 keep coming up? And why did God forgive Solomon when he sacrificed the 144,000 animals? Because 4 + 4 + 1 = 9. You know, you're going into your higher level of consciousness. So if you're looking at this book another way, you know, and you understand numerology, as, you know, Bill Donahue teaches it, you know, the Bible is just, you know, talking about a lot of different, you know, hidden messages and signs if you really kind of look at it from a different perspective and not take it literally. So you got to ask yourself those questions there. And then what are the consequences for you know, the law don't apply to David, the law don't apply to Solomon. And then also what's dangerous about this is when church leaders and when church administrators and when people in the church do commit these types of sins, we just, all we got to do is just point to David. You know, if I'm a preacher or a bishop or something in the church and I sleep with one of the somebody in the congregation, all I got to do is say, you know what, David wasn't perfect. You know, God, he was a man after God's own heart, but he taking people's wives and having their husbands killed. Like, you're greater than David. You're greater than David. You're greater than Solomon. So look at yourself as that. You ain't never killed nobody, killed her husband. You ain't never slept with nobody's wife. You greater than Moses. You ain't never killed nobody and buried the body. You know what I'm saying? You greater than Jacob. You know what I mean? Like you ain't never like did the things that Jacob did to his own brother with his mother's help. Like you're greater than most of these characters in the Bible. You know, even Christ himself that said that the least of the kingdom of heaven will be greater than John the Baptist. Like if you look at yourself as being what you're supposed to be, like a Christ. Let's take Christ for instance. I don't mean to jump off top there, Kev, but
No, you're fine.
like when you stand up in your congregation and everybody look at you like it's something wrong with you, like you the devil. Like who are you in that moment? You are Christ, because everybody thought he was crazy. Everybody thought he was preaching against God. When you stand up against this literature and you start asking the questions that you're supposed to ask and applying common sense and logic, in that moment you become Christ, because you get persecuted, you get kicked out, you all the things that happen to him happen to you at that point. So
yeah. Absolutely. And no, and you're absolutely right. And what I try to tell people that the Bible is more so about an allegory on becoming enlightened. Once you become enlightened, you will be hated by the world for saying things that they're not accustomed to hearing. This is exactly what happens when you enlighten. This is what the character Jesus did. He did not agree with God or the Bible's God or the Old Testament's God as we have it. God, the Old Testament God, was saying to stone people. Jesus was saying, if you have sin, cast the first stone, and that it wasn't right to stone people because you weren't innocent yourself from sin, where the Bible's God has been having them stone each other for thousands of years until Jesus came along the scene. So you got to understand that religious people are actually who hated Jesus. In the literature, please understand this didn't happen in real life. Linda said earlier, wow, you guys are bashing God. We're not. We're bashing literature, or questioning literature rather. We believe that that no God told anybody to write any of these books. So when we're talking about the literature in this Bible, we're talking about literature that has been passed down via man, compiled and plagiarized and then placed in the book that you now believe is holy. Literally, we understand the origins of the Bible does not trace back to a God. So try your best not to be offended, as we don't see it the same way as you. Just to speak to that, 144,000 are supposed to be the number that is allowed to go to heaven. 144,000 is supposed to be the number of animals that was burned to an offering to God. What is that? Why 144? Well, we know Jesus had 12 disciples. Okay, we also know it's 12 months of a year, 12 hours in the AM and a PM, right? Both together makes 24 hours in a day, but divided by 2, it's 12 hours in each one. It's 12 months of the year, 12 zodiacs, 12 disciples, and 144 is 12 multiplied by 12. I wonder why. You guys have to understand this stuff is astronomical. And if it isn't, why are the same numbers repeated all throughout the Bible? It's like you guys really don't want to see, and it's unfair to us that we have to keep, I guess, answering to you guys when you say, are you disrespecting God? It's kind of not our fault that you're not there yet. You know, you have to understand that you are, especially for those of you who are not aware of what we do, because I get new people who watch all the time because somebody may have shared a video and you guys, you know, want to come and listen to what I have to say because frankly, you don't like what I said and you just want to see what it's about. But for you guys who are new, please understand that the people who mostly listen to this channel, we're past that. And frankly, we know that no God told anyone to write these books. So if you are listening to our content, please understand we are not talking from the perspective of this God is literal, therefore we're asking him questions. We're coming from a perspective that this God is literary, therefore it needs to be questioned. So you guys can see the literary fallacies that were placed on this concept of God that you only know about because of literature. It's really that simple. We're not questioning God, we're questioning the literature's God, which is no God. So just keep that in mind, guys. Okay, yeah, there you go. I think you put that up there, LeSean. 12 plus 12 zodiac signs, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 disciples, 12 disciples. We have sun discs that are behind the heads of Jesus and literally every other person that was attributed for being a son god. They have suns. The Statue of Liberty has sun rays coming out of its head. This is our culture. It's Hellenism. It's Greek culture. LeSean is 100% right. It's 12 tribes of Israel. Exactly. And this is exactly where you get a lot of this stuff from, guys. So just please understand that. It's all numerology, it's all zodiac, or astrology, or astronomical. It's a lot. It's all of that, to be honest with you. Then of course there's things that's added over the course of time to keep you brainwashed as well. But if you guys only really thought about it, this literature was written about the sun in the sky, not an actual person on the earth. So this is our perspective. So I hate to harp on that for so long. But I keep getting comments of people feeling like we're being disrespectful, which is really not the case. And I get that when you're talking against someone's, conceptualized thinking, that they do feel offended too. So let me just say that as well. But I just want people to know that our intentions is not to offend you. You just are offended. Just put it that way. But again, so Ricky, again, we're back with this idea of this God who is taught to us before we're even old enough to read, that he knows everything. He's taught to us before we even know how to read, that he's all love. And these are two of the concepts that seem to stick. He's eternal. He's always been there, right? He hears everything. He sees everything before it happens, and nothing happens without his plan or without him saying so. This is our concept of God, right? Also, this God who's so infinite and existed long before we ever did needs us somehow for a relationship. Created us somehow because it was lonely and bored, but it doesn't need anything. And we don't question this stuff. And don't you feel like it's unfair to subject people to this type of information and say you can't question it? Is that not child abuse, to tell a child that this is the way for thinking and this is our way of thinking, and if you think outside of it, you're burning in a hell? It may not be delivered by way of child abuse, but isn't it?
Yeah,
what would you say?
We actually we refuse to be honest, and sometimes it's hard to be honest. Just like people want to get to the end of the book where Jesus comes back and he saves everyone, but we don't want to be honest about the heinous things, the horrendous things that took place in this book. We say that was then. This is now. It's almost like let's just say the Holocaust, or let's say slavery for America. It's like we want to talk about, and I don't mean to turn this into something else, but it's like we want to talk about how great America is, but we don't want to talk about how it got that way. we want to talk about how great it is, and it's the richest country, and it's the best place to live. But we don't want to talk about how it got that way. So Christianity, how it came into being, how it originated, with the murder and the torture that people had to endure who wouldn't let go of their traditions and the how they respected their ancestors to follow this way. We don't want to be honest about that. We just want to say, oh, God is love and Jesus is love, but we don't want to go back and see how this thing was propagated. Through like I look at it like this. When you have a group of people and you push something on them, what you make it law that if you teach this or read this or say this, you're guilty of heresy. I can take your land, I can take your life, I can take whatever I want to take from you. So in order to stay safe, you have to suppress your traditions and your culture. You also have to teach that to your children in order to keep them safe. So what happens is over time, as generations go on, the people who know the lie, they're dead now. So what's been taught to their children, they don't know it's a lie. So it's just business as usual for them. So as time is going on, the people who knew that it was a lie, who knew it was fabricated, they're dead. So they didn't teach their children, hey, this is fabricated. It's not the truth. Our ancestors really believe this. No, they didn't teach that to their children, because if they did, that could run the risk of them maybe being killed. So they just teach you, hey, believe in Jesus. It's the law. Go with it. So as time goes on, now nobody knows it's a lie. You see what I mean? So that's where we're at right now. But we don't want to be honest when we look at this book and say, you know what? That's not right. That's not right. It's not right for God to kill a whole family for something one man did. That's not right. Because if we did that, we would be wrong. If I killed the whole man's family for something he did, you'd be like, you know what, dude, that's not right. but it's right
I
when
mean,
God.
it's crazy, man, because you literally telling the truth. If a woman's husband cheated on her, and she waited and he got this woman pregnant with triplets or whatever, right? Or let's just say, for instance, that the man cheated on the woman some years ago. Now she an old lady now, but she found out this man got a 20-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 14-year-old that he didn't tell her about. He been living a whole separate life. She gets so mad at him, she go chase down all the children and kill them. You see what I'm saying? We would all say that woman is evil. If that man cheated on you and did you wrong, then that's for you to take up with him, leave that relationship, get away from that man. He's a liar, right? But you took it upon yourself to go take the lives of people that didn't have anything to do with him cheating on you, right? They just merely a product of sex, right? And you wouldn't kill them as if they did something wrong. This is honestly how the biblical God works. He promises to curse children that are born outside of wedlock for up to 7 generations. You see what I'm saying? Like if you have a child that is a bastard, for lack of a better word, your child and your mother and your father wasn't married when you were born, the Old Testament God, because he got better over the course of time, would have cursed all the grandkids up until the 7th child, the 7th generation, because you had a baby out of wedlock. Understand, if I'm a child who's born out of wedlock, I didn't do that. I was not there. Like, I didn't tell my mom and daddy to have sex. I had nothing to do with that. I'm merely the byproduct. But I would be cursed. Not just that, my child would be cursed. Even if I'm married when they're born. Not just that, their child. And this is the Old Testament God's way of thinking. And that's what it blows my mind when people adopt that mindset and say, it must be right. Someone asked me, they said, well, Martin Luther King believed in God, Kevin, or whatever. Are you more down than him? I want to say this. Please understand that regardless of how powerful some of the leaders who came before us were, we do not have to adopt their way of thinking either. Simply because you are a powerful, influential person does not make you right either when it comes to a God. Do not think that you have to subscribe your identity to something because someone you look up to does. This is how we fall into this mess. Question everything, man. You don't have to take on the mental intellect of the person that you call yourself learning from. Like, you don't have to do that. You can have your own mind and still learn from people. This is why we say eat the meat and spit out the bones. I'm not supposed to take your brain and become you. I'm supposed to hear the information that you present, challenge that information in a critical way, and if that information comes back true, align up with that, right? Don't teach different from the information that you have found to be true or fact. It's really that simple. But because you say some things that I agree with, this does not mean I have to pray to the same dude you pray to. Like, we have to grow out of that.
I can't see any of the comments right now, Kevin. But let me just touch on real quick about the whole Martin Luther King situation. Like, you're absolutely right. But the thing is, Martin Luther King, if you read some of his early papers, he actually questioned Christianity, and he actually wrote about how Christianity was influenced by Zoroastrianism and a lot of the other religions, that Mithraism that came before Christianity. He said you cannot not think that these religions who had so many similarities to Christianity didn't influence this belief system. So even he was intelligent enough to know that, so, if you're going to speak on Martin, do a little more research on him, because I think he understood that the way we feel about religion, I feel like he used it as a vehicle to spark that movement and continue that movement that had nothing to do with him really believing in it. He was raised in it, but I think he used it to further the civil rights movement. Also with Malcolm, I love Malcolm. You see him, he's on my wall, but I'm not a Muslim. I can separate him being a Muslim and for him being with Islam from me respecting him as a man and respecting what he stood for. I'm not going to discredit or discount everything that he did just because he was he was with Islam. Okay, because he was a Muslim, and that's the danger of religion. It's divisive. It separates us. So even if like me, people think if you know me as a person and you didn't never know my religious views, like, you would think I was a pretty cool guy because I'm respectful. You know what I mean? I'm trustworthy, like all of these things. and you would, but when you see, you go to my Facebook page, like, oh my God, like he's saying this, he's saying that, and it will totally change your perspective of what type of person I am because of the way I think and what religious ideology I subscribe to. And that's the danger of religion.
And that's 100% true. I'm glad you mentioned both Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, because the guy actually said Malcolm X, but on the Martin Luther King thing, dude, you're 100% right. I've actually posted his actual papers that he typed in college, saying that he saw that Christianity was plagiarized from other sources. This is Martin Luther King's words. And dude, when I posted it, I mean, it was a regular video post with the link to see the actual paper. So it's still up there somewhere. I mean, man, it shared like crazy, and people were furious because Martin Luther King may have not believed in Jesus. They were furious, like there's no way, he spent his whole entire ministry as a Baptist preacher. And I'm like, but you never really heard this man teach about Jesus. You have to understand that this man understood at that time, if I come out and tell these people I don't believe in Jesus, they ain't gonna listen to me. This is what happens even now. You got half the people are not ready to hear this now. You think they was ready to hear this that long ago? So you got to think about this. A man like, even with Martin Luther King saying, hey, I do understand this literature isn't the word of God, but I'm still going to use the title as a Baptist preacher because I need to propel my mission in what I'm doing. If I tell these people I'm not a preacher and I don't believe in the God they believe in, they won't march with me, right? You have to, it's almost like I'm going to use the fuel that drives you. If Ricky comes to me and he says, man, I want to make some money, right? That's all I care about. Then I know that if I have money, I can get Ricky services, right? I'm using something that he loves that fuels him to earn his services. If he says, hey, man, I don't really want money, I just want to help out with this mission, then he comes on the show, doesn't charge me a dime, and he gets exactly what he's asking for, right? So I know now I can call on Ricky at any time because Ricky just wants to be on the camera so he can help to give information to the public. This means I can work with, I understand what fuels him. This is the same thing with Martin Luther King. If Ricky was a person who was money driven, in no way am I going to get Ricky to get on this camera with me and do it for free without paying him anything, because that doesn't fuel him. If Martin Luther King would have said, y'all just get out and march because we want the world to be better, at that time, these people wouldn't have done it. If you're going to march because you believe Jesus is going to be your authority and go before you and give you the anointing to tackle these devils, right, and everything they stand for, then you're gonna have the confidence now to get out there, because that's just how your brain's been thinking. You've been taught to believe your whole life that if Jesus sprinkles some anointing on you, then you can do it, right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah,
okay, fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you're dead on, Kevin. I didn't even know you had posted those things. Man, I actually just got on Facebook November of last year, man. So I'm new to all this. So
oh yeah, man, you should have saw it. It went crazy, man. The actual link, people was arguing with it at first, and I'm like, the link's right there, and it's long. You can read it verbatim, man. This dude does not believe in, and people read that and still say you're reading it wrong, because it's like it doesn't matter if you believe in Jesus or not. It doesn't make it true. That's what people don't understand, number one, you see, but it's just hard to deal with it because they think that if someone who they believe was a hero believed in it, then hey, it must be something to it. Well, they don't realize that was a human who grew up in the confines of being taught Christianity and really didn't have any other information outside of that. You see what I'm saying? Like all of us.
That's all it takes. It just takes one person who has some type of respect or who's renowned to say that they believe in something, and then you'll have so many people following and subscribing to it. But that's just conformity. I've never been the type of person to conform, and that's one of the dangers of life, is we just doing what everybody else does without really questioning. And that's dangerous. But you can just go to the library, and because a lot of the research I did it before YouTube was even popular, before the internet was even popular. I actually had to go to the library and dig out these books. And I was on microfish. People probably don't even know what microfish is. And I'm on, looking up magazine articles and just reading about a lot of the different religions. So that's why, like, now that I've stepped away from it, it's like clear to me, because all of these things go back to a man. And like I adore Malcolm. I think he's like one of the greatest people to ever live. But I would never, because of my admiration for him, I would never subscribe to Islam, because to me it's just another religion. You know, so I mean, I could separate his religious views from the man, and I can respect what he was trying to do for humanity, and not be blinded by his religious views.
I actually agree. And we see this all the time, man. We see who we think are mighty men and women, even of God, do things that are frankly detestable. You know, so we know that people are able to put on a front. We know that people are able to walk out in front of crowds of people and seem like a good person, and then even on the back, on the back or behind closed doors, actually literally be raping children, and then do it all under the belief in your Jesus. So you have to understand that because someone is held in high regard, it doesn't mean you can adopt their way of thinking. You know, you have to understand that it does not speak to them being connected to a higher source and a moral source simply because they're able to put on a show in front of you personally. Like, again, we know that preachers all the time, you know, get caught molesting children. Now, I'm not saying this to say that all ministers do it and no people who don't subscribe to religion don't do it, but it is a problem, right, for a person to say that they represent Jesus to be doing it. Let's just be honest. To us, we understand rape is rape, so it's not more evil for a Christian to rape a child than an atheist. It's rape, it's evil, the same. But to a God, and on a moral standpoint, you stand in position to say you're chosen by a God, which therefore gives you the ability to have access to children, and parents trust to have access to their child, and now you're raping children. This does make it worse, right? Because they've presented themselves now as a sheep, but in fact was a wolf, right? Versus a pedophile who just sneaking around. You bring your children to this man and he touches your children. And it's your fault because you overlook it because he's supposed to be anointed. And these things are really horrible, to think that a all-knowing God would even allow these type things to go on. Now, you look at rape and all these things, you say, well, this is based on free will. We're talking about priests and preachers, though. An all-knowing God would know what it would do to his religion or the belief in him for his actual followers to be raping children, right? He would know that this would be detrimental to the belief that because he's allowing his own prophets and preachers to do this, right? I mean, it's just crazy to think this. So again, when you look at the literature that we have and you see this stuff coming by way of the Vatican suppressing so many rapes, we got Jehovah's Witnesses who suppress Christianity suppress. It's like, I don't know of any like non-believing groups who suppress rape and evil things as much as religion does, simply because they don't want their religion to look bad. So other people who do horrible things get to walk away because the religion is to be protected. So now they get to rape children and get a slap on the wrist, where normally this would be a problem. Josh had showed me a video a while back, and I'll try to find it, guys, and send y'all the link or something or share it. But this woman had been raped by this preacher. And she was telling him that she was going to expose him because it had been years and years ago. And she left the church, but just never had the heart to tell him. So she writes him letters and emails him and tells him, hey, I'm going to come clean with this. And so now he wants to do a video and stand up in front of his church and admit it before she does, right? And what he does is he offers an apology and says, I know you were underage at the time, and I had a real problem, but God has forgiven me, and I'm hoping you will too. And he actually got like a standing ovation from his church, confessing that he raped a girl, but saying, I was wrong for it, and God has forgiven me, and I hope you will too. But he only did it because she already let him know she was going to come out with it. And he got a standing ovation at his church for confessing rape. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? And it's like, in no other atmosphere would this dude have got a standing ovation. Or even a congratulatory hand clap. It's just amazing to me.
You know what? You know what else, Kev? It's like this. Isn't it funny? Like we should just acknowledge the fact that, isn't it funny that no one's getting punished for anything that they're doing? Like, isn't it also funny that you can't verify when God does or does not do something for you? But when somebody does something so awful, They don't even get punished. Sometimes, you know, just whatever happens, maybe people say it's karma or whatever, but like there's no instant like punishment for it, just like it was in the Bible. That's why we know these things are not true. Like we are in a technological age, okay? But this intelligent, all-knowing God gives us a book that can be altered. Now, if the Bible, if you can dump it in water and it didn't get wet, or if you can set it on fire and it didn't burn, then I will believe that it's the word of God. But if it
and no matter what language you speak, if you can read it and it automatically just can be translated to you, I would believe it was God. No matter what language, because if it's God, you're not going to limit someone from reading your word because they have a language barrier, right? That would be stupid. Thanks a lot.
Everyone's getting proof in the Bible. Everyone. If you look at all of the situations in the book of Acts, people are getting raised from the dead. People are getting healed. Snakes biting people, they're not dropping dead. Like all of these things that you can see and verify with your own eyes. Like you pointed out one time, you was talking about Gideon. Gideon specifically asked God for something to prove to him what he was saying was legitimate. But we can't get any proof. Like how is that fair? How's your God not a respecter of persons? If he proves something to one person, but he just say, you know what, you got to read it in this book that's so ambiguous that it spawns 4,000 different religions and tens of thousands denominations, and you're not supposed to be confused, and he can't understand if you don't believe in it. Like if you do die and you do get judged and there is a judgment, you gonna beat the case. So ain't even no point in you even doing anything because you gonna beat the case.
Absolutely.
You know, God gonna judge me, dude. He just gonna let me in because in the first minute he gonna be like, Rick, go on in, man, go on in, bro. Like he just gonna let me in. I'm gonna be like,
yeah,
you gonna beat the case. I don't even have to prepare for it, Kev. I don't have to prepare for it. I don't have to study. You know, when you have an attorney and he about to present you a case, he got to make sure all his facts and everything together. I'm gonna be like, you ready? You ready? And then I'm gonna beat the case. And it's gonna be an easy case to beat, man. Like you can't show someone something and not show everyone and say that that's fair when there's people manipulating and deceiving. Like you say, the people that we supposed to look up to and follow, they not doing what's right. They're taking people for their money. And this all-knowing, all-benevolent God is supposed to be like, you didn't believe, so I'm gonna punish you. You don't understand how we didn't believe? Come on, man.
Right, you're gonna blame me for not believing when you have the very people who you chose personally to anoint and put in your position to talk to you and convey that message to us. You're gonna use con artists and thieves who would trick us into giving 10% of our money, knowing your literature don't say it. Right? You're gonna do that. You're gonna have me believe that if I give money, it'll be given back. When frankly, you've never said that. Right, and now I'm going to be stressed thinking that you don't care about me because I give my money and I'm not saying in return when you're not going to tell me, even though you got a mouth and you can speak to anybody. I'm just going to be a victim of my own manipulation and ignorance, and you're not going to tell me that I'm wrong. And that's what's crazy, to think that there are people in other places on the planet who pray to different gods, and Jesus hasn't told them that he was really God. There are people on the earth that pray to different gods, and Krishna has not told everyone secretly that he is the one that's God. Yet there are billions of Hindus who believe in this dude and that he's coming back, but he never told nobody else to believe in him. And these gods are simply demographic. If you never heard of them, you don't know who they are. Not one single God has spoke to somebody in another country somewhere way outside the geographical area, and somebody say, I heard of Jesus and angels in the sky, and a person having a Lamb's book of life. Even that's crazy. And the all-knowing God would have your name written in a book, like he knows everything. Why the semantics? And why is it called the Lamb's Book of Life? We already talked about the sun goes down in Aries during the winter solstice or the vernal equinox under Aries, which is the precious Lamb of God. And now this is the Lamb's Book of Life that you expected to see your name in. And the all-knowing God would have someone keep tabs on every person that gets saved via a name in a book, another book. So now there's a heaven book. So how do we know that can't be altered? So how do we know someone can't just write your name in there and just let people in on the flip side? How do we know someone's not going to let you in because they're mad? How do you know that some angel in heaven ain't going to get mad at God and try to deceive angels and get cast down again and there'll be another Satan? How do you know these things? because we live by this standpoint that these things can only happen once. Satan supposedly wanted the stars to be where gods were. Wanted them to be like. It's so evil that Satan got cast out of heaven because he wanted to be like God. And it's just funny that we look at that like that's evil, when really you can't really find Satan being evil, right? Really, what makes him evil? What actually makes this man evil? Wanting to be like God? What is it? Because when you really look at evil, the odds are not in the biblical God's favor when you're stacking up and you're keeping a tally on who is more evil, right? You just can't get any worse than the biblical God. Number one, he created it. so he would have to win the competition because evil wouldn't exist had he not created it. And then people say, well, he created it just to give you free will. So in order for you to make decisions on your own, evil must exist. This is your idea that in order to make your own decisions, murder and rape must also be real. Like, really, what? Like, in order for me to make my own decision, murder has to be real. Do you not know there are probably some evil things that we don't know about yet that people ain't doing? Like, there's probably some really evil things. And if once this evil thing happens, we're going to say, well, God allows that to happen so you can have free will, right? So Hitler killed all these Jews because God wants you to know you can have free will. Like, this is the idea of people. Honestly, the only reason we have evil is so you can have a choice to commit evil. Guys, we're going to go for 5 more minutes and then we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, free.
So if you guys have any questions or whatever, please post them.
Yeah, free. There's no point in having free will if you're gonna get punished for using it. So, and this is the danger that the church does to us. And sometimes we can just leave it alone. We can say, what good is it? Why, why we got to speak up against it and why we have to be against the church. It's ironic to me that the important things that this book says that the church should do, they don't do it. When it says that the people in the Bible over in the book of Acts, when it said they had all things in common and no one lacked, and they didn't lack anything, and they shared everything, they shared the resources. The church don't do that. They keep that money in that account and they use it however they want to use it. When the church says you need to have faith, they don't even have faith in you. Because if you needed help and they needed to help you, the church uses common sense with you, but they don't want you to use common sense. When you lose your job and when you need some money, they ask for the bill. They say, okay, give us the statement. They don't even put the money in your hand. They write it out to the company of where they're going to pay it to. So they use, why do they do that? Because that's common sense. Because they
don't trust you. They don't trust you.
The
very person who been giving them money, they don't trust.
They'll be out of business. So they ask you to trust in God and trust in this. And then they tell you to wait on God, but they don't wait on God. They wait on the amount of time it take you to pull out your wallet and take your money out. That's the only waiting on God that they gonna do. When the church needs something, say, hey, let's wait on God and see if God will provide. Nope, you gonna provide it because they're gonna ask you for the money. So the whole thing is, man, like this thing is dangerous to us because in our community, we need the unity the most. The church, if the church had a daycare center that was getting all of our kids ready for school and they was homeschooling kids and pushing them through this rigorous education process to where you can graduate before you 14, because the school system is crap. We all know that. You can teach a year. You can teach what they teach you in school. You could teach 3 grade levels in like 1 year. I know I could, if I homeschool my kids. So where is these resources that the church could be given? Everybody in the church should have a life insurance policy, Kev, and the church should pay for it. And so when you die, they ain't got to have a car wash for your funeral. Like, you can set up something with the church and say, look, I'm gonna write out $100,000 life insurance policy on you. You give the church a percentage when you die. The rest goes to your family. That's a way to build wealth. That everybody in the church is gonna pay You pay the little $30 a month life insurance. The church does with the money that you give to them, and that's a way to build wealth. It gives you some money, gives your family some money when you pass away. It gives the church a little bit of money when you pass away. That's a simple concept, man. Where's this money that's sitting in this account? Are we getting any investment income? Or what's the best way for the church to operate, as a nonprofit or as a legitimate business? What tax? You see what I mean? So like all Absolutely. Of these things we should be able to get from the church, and if we can't, then it's detrimental to us, man. It's detrimental to our community. We're not giving our people no, just like Callie said earlier today, we're not giving our people no political education. We're not giving them, when these politicians come to the church, they just getting your vote. They're not doing anything for the community. Most of them, I'm not saying all, but most of them are not. We're not holding them accountable. But these are your church parishioners and church administrators who are in cahoots with the politicians. They sitting on their hands. So it's like we got to hold some of these people accountable. When a rapper comes to a city and he got to check in and he got to pay money to the gangsters in the city for him to perform there, some of these churches shouldn't be. I'm not telling anybody to do anything against the law, but some of these churches shouldn't even be able to operate in some of these communities unless they're willing to open up their books and say, what are y'all doing with our money? Because the money is theirs. If you want to talk about tithes and offerings, the tithe was the people's. That money is the community's money. It's
Absolutely.
not the church's money. So if they can't open up the books and say we spent X amount of dollars on this, and this, then they shouldn't be allowed to operate in the community, man. That's how I feel. I'm sorry, man.
No, honestly, I appreciate the passion and the honesty, because that's a 100% fact. They should not be allowed to operate in the community. The sheer fact is, most of these churches take that deposit directly to the bank. I know an officer who actually signals for the sheep to go into church every single Sunday, and then actually waits for them to take the deposit to the bank every single Sunday. So I wish all believers would consider, what if everyone that you know took 10% of their earnings to the bank every single Sunday and just walked away and didn't expect anything in return? And please tell me how that would help the economy of your city alone, your county, your street, or anything, your people, anything. This is exactly what you're doing. You are giving your money directly to the church, who's directly giving that money to the bank anyway. So you probably should stop, and you probably should look for better places to put your money. Honestly, it's not working for you. And honestly, the people who are standing in the way of you being blessed, literally blessed in terms of saving your own money, creating a life for yourself, all these preacher men, and y'all just don't get that. If you took your money to the bank and you called the bank and your money wasn't there, 10% of your earnings now. So if you make $700 a week and you gave them $70 and you checked your bank account and that money was not in there, y'all would be tore up, and you would. But you'll give your money to a preacher every day who says that money is for God. But why would a God need your money? And if you read the Bible yourself, it never asks you for money, yet you still continue to do it. And people like us should be able to walk in these community churches, because the churches are for everyone. They're community churches, right? We should be able to walk in there and confront these pastors and say, what are you doing with our community's money? Look at the community. You have a large church which has a lot of members, so I know you bring in money. I just saw you collect tithe. What are you going to do with this money? Because the Bible does say that it's for the fatherless and the widows, not to be hoarded by and taken to the bank and used on church bills and other church things. That, and even here's the crazy thing about it. Paul even spoke to that, or who's the writings that's attributed to Paul even mention this. He says that you are to take up an agreement with people. Tell them what the church bills are. Tell them what you need from people. And then they make a commitment to give this. But you don't tell them that it's tithe, right? You don't tell them that. And this was literally the person attributed to Paul, teaching that there's no such thing as tithe. And it's just funny how if you ask a preacher, why do you teach tithe? They give you a bunch of bogus reasons that when you read the Bible yourself, you realize that it isn't. So before we close, I'm going to give you guys a couple of reasons. Because what Ricky just said is important. A lot of you guys are getting used for your money. When you go and you ask your pastor, why do you collect the tithe? And they tell you about the Melchizedek, right? And Abraham, or the Melchizedek is really what it means. It means the high priest. So when Abraham tithes to the Melchizedek, or who you call Melchizedek, I think that's the name of a person. It's a title. The Melchizedek is the high priest again. Abraham won money in war, and off the spoils of war, he gave 10% of what he collected via war, okay? And he never tithed again before or after that. Abraham was rich. He never tithed again before or after that. The word tithe does not mean give your money every week. It means 10%. It means tenth. Abraham tithed because he gave 10% of what he had to the high priest. That's literally it. Nowhere else do you see anyone else tithing money. Abraham wasn't tithing off what he earned. He was tithing off what he stole. So if anyone should be tithing, I guess thieves should, right? Which is crazy. So when you go from that standpoint, they'll say, well, if not the Melchizedek, right? God did say ask for 10%. He's talking about the 10th animal that passed through your farm, the 10th animal for food, the 10th wheat for or meat in the storehouse. It never asks you. The literature says, do not change anything in the Bible or take away from it. If you consider God being all-knowing, if God once said that tithe was food, why do you think you know more than who you believe is God and can then make food money? Why do you believe that, preachers? Because preachers say, well, times have changed. Well, I thought God doesn't change. And you are changing the literature of who you believe is God, because tithe was never money. In fact, if you had money, you were penalized for it. So if you live too far away to tithe and you tried to tithe money, they actually fined you for giving money because there was nothing they could do with it. It was simply to have bread in a storehouse. That's what a lot of people don't understand. And if you live too far to be able to get your food to the storehouse, the Bible says for you to sell that food and take the money and buy it on strong drink, have a party with it, enjoy yourself and have fun. It don't say nothing about giving it to the church. It says invite the poor to have the party with you. So directly give it to the poor, so to speak. But it never says, send it to the church in an envelope. And we have been taught this. And so again, guys, the time for this is over. We are fed up, and we're no longer going to continue to bite our tongues just so a lot of believers can be comfortable. You have to understand that times are changing. We are living in the world, in the age of information. Myself, I'm 35 years old, and when I was coming up, I didn't have access to an internet. So I know a lot of the people who came before me didn't. We were forced to, to read the literature that we were given, unfortunately. And I didn't have a Quran, in my possession. I had a Bible. Someone asked me earlier, Kevin, I love what you say, I love your thoughts, but why do you only talk about Christianity? It's what I know. But I do talk about other religions by way of God never wrote a book. So there's no reason to believe in any religion, as God never wrote a book or told anybody to write a book, whatever God you think it is. So, but I talk about Christianity a lot because I understand Christianity. It's what I taught for so long. So just for people who ask that question. But I want to finish my thought here. For those of us who are now understanding that there's more information than we knew was out there, you cannot try to hold us back by keep on spewing fear out of us. It's written that many will fall out, or many will turn away from God, or if of course, the great fall away is going to come, or you were never with us because you went out from among us, or whatever, or you're going to burn in hell. These things are not going to work because you're talking to people who literally understand the origins of your literature and know a God didn't say it. You're wasting your time. So I'm letting you know you're wasting your time by quoting scriptures to someone who completely understands the origins of your beliefs. Like we're not convinced whatsoever. And for those of you who were in this belief and these type of threats still bother you, please understand it's only because your mind, it just takes a while to evolve and develop. You may have not long been left the religion, so when you start hearing these type of threats at you, they do make you feel fear, because really they always have, and the brain just learns that way. Just understand your fear for what they are saying does not make it true. Just if you fear hell, it also doesn't make it true. I asked a guy a question the other day, does not believing in gravity help you float? And he said no. I said, well, all right, then, right? Your belief in something does not change the facts about anything, right? I want to say this, guys, because I promised you guys about 5 more minutes. So I'm going to give Ricky the floor for a second, give him some closing words, and tell you guys where to find him and some of his, of course, his amazing videos that he's already starting to put out. They are well informative. He really goes into it, guys, and he really makes you think. So I brought him onto the show for that reason. When I first saw one of his videos, the first thing I did was just share it to my page, because I was like, this stuff needs to be heard. So with no further ado, Ricky, if you want to, say some closing words and tell people where to find you.
Yes, sir. First, I just want to thank you for having me on, Kevin. Josh, man, I've been watching y'all for a long time. Coach, Jamar, everybody. So I admire the work that you guys are doing. Man, it's an honor for me to just sit and talk with the gods, man, because I believe that's what we all are, you know, because anytime I need people who subscribe to God, you know, and they know that I don't believe anymore, but they call me for money. They call me for, you know what I mean, for the borrow. They need to hold a little something. They call me because the only God that we need is each other. You know what I mean? So we start treating each other like how we're supposed to treat each other. We can fix this world, man, and it can be whatever we need it to be. But you can find most of my videos. I got a channel on YouTube. It's called begging for change. So it's begging the number 4 and change. I'm on YouTube there, and of course you can go to my Facebook page. It's Ricky Swink, last name SWINK. But I just want to thank you for having me on. But I just want to leave you with this: when the church becomes everything that we need it to be, we need to start saving our people now and not try to save them in an afterlife that nobody knows about. You know, so it just makes more sense for us to start having our salvation right now and learning the things that we need to learn. Getting having access to the services that we need. And I'll also apologize for my voice. I have a loud voice anyway. I talk loud, and people probably like, man, you screaming, you yelling. You know what I mean? So when I'm
nah, you fine, man.
It just comes out. I just turned into a whole nother person, man. So I'm sorry. So if the volume was too loud, please, I apologize for that. But when I'm talking about something that I love my people, man. I love people, period. Not just black people, but I love everybody. And this religion it's just dangerous, man. It's just dividing us. And even in the Bible, Paul, the Paul character, he says, believe the same thing so there'll be no divisions among us. And it's like, if you look at all the churches, they're not doing what the Bible even says to do. So what good is it, man, if we're not going to follow it? So that's all I have, man.
I like that. What good is it if you're not going to follow it? And one of the things that you said about, us being there for each other, one of the things I always say, man, is we can be the answer to each other's prayers. You know what I mean? So if we drop the pride and lose all of that, and we begin to call on each other for the needs and begin to make our needs and visions known to each other, we can see more of our dreams come true than we ever thought could be possible. Did all of that get heard, or did some of it go out? Did all of that get out?
Yeah, I heard everything.
Okay, fantastic. Someone says, Ricky, you're a smart dude. Keep up the good work. I agree. Keep up the good work, Ricky, man. And everything that you're doing, definitely we'll have you on again.
Love and support, man. I love y'all. This is the only reason why I do it. For a long time, I just thought no one ever cared about what I had to say. But people care. So if you are one that has the information and you have the knowledge and you have the charisma and people listen to you, say what needs to be said, because sometimes that's the only way that they're going to hear it. If they don't hear from somebody else, they may hear it from you. So things that I'm saying, there's a lot of other people saying it, but they might not listen to that other person. They may only receive it from you or listen when it comes from you. Or you might articulate it a certain way that they get it hearing it from you. So don't ever think that you don't have anything to say and that you can't contribute. So everybody has something to contribute.
Absolutely. All right. So, guys, keep on just sponsoring 2 more shirts. We have one Be the Evolution shirt we just popped up, and another shirt is I Love Life. They are both amazing shirts. Please, guys, go support our movement so we can have some fun and do some amazing things to get more information out there. The shirts are cool, but of course, guys, you wearing that shirt shows that you supported something that is really going to be beneficial to our world and our minds. So it's not some church. This is, who you're giving the funds to, and we're going to be here to show you exactly what we do with them too. So guys, go get a Be the Evolution shirt, get an I Love Life shirt, please do. Next week, I'm going to be giving away a free shirt to one of the donators. So and we're going to try to start doing that a little more, giving you guys something in return for what you guys do. It'll be like a raffle, and we'll go off the donators, and we're going to give you guys a free shirt next week. See how that works out for you guys. So again, thank you guys for your time. Please stay tuned for everything else that we're doing. I will be getting back with you guys on the information for the Young Pharaoh event and also the Lorenzo event myself. So I will be getting that information back to you guys really, really soon. And also, someone says, Kevin, why don't you debate someone named Cornelius? I actually do not debate. I do have dialogues, though. What you guys witnessed between myself and that pastor was a friend of mine, Callie or Tacoma, as a lot of you guys know him, was confessing to his father that he no longer was a victim to religion and that he was in fact walking away. And he needed someone who could help him break this information to his father. And the father wanted to do it online. And so this is what you guys witnessed, not me picking on a pastor or a bishop. It was merely a dialogue. And I am willing to dialogue with anyone, but I do not debate. I see no point in it. I've never seen a person come to the other side of the person who was debating the alternative ever in my life. If you win the debate, I'm not going to believe in your God. And if I win the debate, you're not going to drop a belief in your God. So why call it a debate? Have a dialogue. That's the best way to handle it. Keep it simple, keep it pushing. All right. So guys, that being said, be the evolution and be the change that you want to see. Love and peace to everybody. And thank you very much again, Ricky.
All right. Thank you, bro.
All right. Peace, family.